Ace looked at the crazy golden lion in front of him, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He didn't know whether to say that the golden lion was ambitious, or call him a complete lunatic. After knowing that his lifespan is only a few years, the golden lion actually made an even crazier choice, deciding to bloom one last time in this world. In short, Ace has understood a truth. No matter what time it is, don't take the initiative to provoke a dying lunatic. Boy, do you want to join us? Come and have a fight with us. The golden lion invited with a smile. Of course, we won't be the only ones at that time. During the 6 months, I will send invitations to the whole sea. Believe me, there are definitely not a few people in this world who are as crazy as me. Jihahaha. The golden lion's invitation moved Ace's heart. Of course, he didn't think that just one golden lion would shake the foundation of the world government, but this was indeed an opportunity to test the celestial dragons. Ace is indeed very curious about the extent to which the Tianlong people have been eroded by the demons from the sky. Okay. I promise you. Ace did not refuse this time, but Ace still emphasized. However, don't expect me to die. I will give priority to the safety of myself and the crew. Once things can't be done, I will leave immediately. Jia ha ha ha. Of course, you just have to go. The golden lion said with a smile. Believe me, the scene will be very exciting then. After finishing speaking, the golden lion turned to look at Ian behind Ace, and said, Okay, kid, tell me your name first. Ian. Ian's answer was very concise, but he didn't mean to refuse the golden lion's acceptance. In fact, in the past few days, Ian has always felt powerless in front of Ace, Willy, and Luo. Let alone Ace's strength, even Willy and Luo's strength give Ian a sense of powerlessness. The feeling of being out of reach. He is too weak. Now, Golden Lion is willing to teach him swordsmanship, which is the best opportunity for him. Only by seizing this opportunity can Ian better repay Captain Ace's kindness in the days to come. Then Ian, follow me for the next 6 months. The Golden Lion put his hands behind his back, with a smile on his face. Ian glanced at Ace first, saw Ace nodded to him, and then walked towards the Golden Lion. Ian understood that this opportunity was actually given to him by Captain Ace. The captain's elixir of life and death is so powerful and absolutely priceless, but the benefits in exchange are used on him. Yeon secretly vowed that he must try his best to learn all the sword skills of the Golden Lion, and not waste this precious opportunity. Okay. Now you can leave for the time being. The Golden Lion raised his hand with a smile on his face, signaling Ace and the others to leave immediately. Don't say I'm not mean enough. Golden Lion said. We have drifted to the side of an empty island now. You can board that empty island first, and then return to Qinghai from there. Ace's pupils shrank, and he also expected the Golden Lion's expulsion order. After all, the specific plan of the Golden Lion's next revenge against the world government is really not convenient for too many people to know. Let's go. Ace turned around and led Willy and Luo towards the outside of the palace. The Golden Lion was an important tool for him to test the Tianlongren. When the 3 of them walked out of the palace, they came to the edge of the main island. Immediately, I saw a spectacular scene, and beside the Golden Lion Islands, there was an endless sea of white clouds floating as far as the eye could see. The sea of clouds was choppy, as if it were a real sea. Occasionally, there were some strange fish jumping out of the sea of clouds. And at the end of the sea of clouds visible to the naked eye, there is an empty island formed by island clouds looming. Is this the real empty island? Ace looked at the magical scene in front of him, and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This place is at an altitude of 7,000 meters, so the sea of clouds in front of me should also be the top of the White Sea. Let's go to the Bye-Bye. Go. Let's go and see. Ace also seems to have tasted the sweetness of adventure. The satisfaction brought by traveling into the unknown world made Ace understand another joy of being a pirate. Whoosh. The 3 of them walked across the White Sea on moon steps, and they were all amazed at the white waves that kept sweeping back under their feet. This unique scenery is not something ordinary people can see. Whoa. Suddenly, a terrifying seafish the size of a giant Neptune jumped out of the Bye-Bye Sea and bit Ace and the others. Both Willy and Luo were startled, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. If it is a giant sea king, the lethality is absolutely terrifying. Haha. Don't be nervous. This kind of seafish is just for show. Ace smiled and stabbed the seafish with a finger gun. Puff. It was as if the sound of a balloon leaking came out. The originally huge seafish in front of them shrunk crazily just like that. It spouted air and turned a few times in the air, and it directly became the size of a normal shark. Swish. Ace casually put it into the different fire space, and explained to Willy and Luo behind him with a smile. These fishes in the Bye-Bye Sea have formed such a balloon-shaped body during the long evolution, so that the buoyancy as it will increase, and it will not fall from the sky. Moreover, if they are made into dishes, it will definitely be a rare delicacy. The two of Willy looked at Ace with even more admiration. Obviously, Captain Ace was the same as the two of them. He saw the White Sea in front of him for the first time, but he seemed to know everything. While speaking, several people could already clearly see the empty island. Looking from a distance, on the white coastline, green trees grow above the clouds, and the whole island is in the surrounding White Sea. At this time, it happened to be the mealtime in the evening, and the residents on the island were cooking, and the smoke from the cooking was wafting out. At first glance, the island is not very big, but it is clearly divided into 3 layers from bottom to top. The bottom floor is the village gathering area including the coast, and the upper floor is the urban area with more orderly and solid houses, while the top floor has only one luxurious and magnificent temple, occupying the best view zone. After landing on the island, Ace was a little surprised to find a 3-meter-high stone tablet on the coast, and there were only 2 large characters on the stone tablet. Bika. Bika. The anime plot in memory quickly flashed in Ace's mind, and he quickly remembered the name of the island, and the expression on his face became even more exciting. Isn't this the hometown destroyed by Thunder God Enel? He is still a young man now. I don't know if he has eaten the thunder fruit yet. Ace led the two of Willy through the forest by the sea, and walked directly towards the nearest village. The buildings here are very special, and they are all made of island clouds, and the flawless white houses look unique. When they reached the entrance of the village, they found a tavern open by the side of the road, and Ace happened to be hungry, so he took Willy and the others and walked in. This kind of tavern in the village is generally for the men in the village to relieve their fatigue after working, and the business is not too busy at ordinary times. But when Ace opened the door and entered it, he found that the tavern was already full of guests, pushing and changing glasses one by one, drinking happily. And the appearance of these people is also very special. Each of them has a pair of angel wings on their backs, and they seem to be out-and-out Sky Islanders. The clerk at the tavern saw Ace and the others coming in, and hurriedly greeted them, saying, "Welcome, I'll find a place for you." However, the clerk looked around and found that the surrounding seats were already occupied. There were 4 people around him, occupying 2 tables for 4 people. A few guests, can you give up a table? These 4 people all looked tall and big, with tall and bulging muscles all over their bodies, and their exposed skin was covered with hideous tattoos. Hearing what the clerk said, one of the fierce and strong men snorted coldly. "Give up a table? Do you know who we are? The 3 streets in the town are all covered by us." The clerk was so frightened by this man that he didn't dare to talk too much, but at this time, the older middle-aged man among the 4, his expression changed suddenly after he glanced at Ace and the others, and he quickly pulled the fierce man up. The strangled strong man vacated his seat, and smiled at Ace with a smile on his face. "We 4 brothers, just squeezed together at the same table, please sit down." Ace glanced at them, took Willy and the 2 to sit down, and said at the same time, "Thank you very much." "Haha, it should be. The middle-aged man waved his hands and made it to the table next to him. The strong man who was pulled up by him still said with some dissatisfaction, "Brother, what are you doing? Isn't it just 3 brats? Why should we give up the table to them?" The strong man glanced at the 3 of Ace, and saw that Willy, the oldest among them, was not yet 20 years old. He was obviously just 3 children. Why did the eldest brothers seem to be afraid of each other? "Idiot." The middle-aged man cursed in a low voice. "Look at the backs of the 3 of them." After hearing the middle-aged man's words, the others subconsciously looked at the backs of the 3 of Ace, and their expressions suddenly changed. They don't even have wings. None of these 3 people are from Sky Island. With a hint of fear on his face, the strong man asked the middle-aged man hesitantly, "Are they from Qinghai?" The middle-aged man didn't speak, but nodded slightly. Seeing the actions of the middle-aged man, the strong man's heart tightened, but he also breathed a sigh of relief, secretly glad that he was not impulsive just now. Compared with most ordinary people on the ground who don't know the existence of Sky Island, most Sky Island people actually know Qinghai people. After all, although very few people can land on the Sky Island, once Qinghai people successfully land on the Sky Island, these people are often the real strong. In history, many people from Qinghai made a huge disturbance on the empty island, and naturally left traces in the history of the empty island. Also let the Sky Island people understand that it is best not to provoke a Qinghai native of unknown origin. Especially the 3 people in front of them, They all look like children, it's really too abnormal. Whose ordinary teenage child can climb a height of 10,000 meters? Maybe the three people in front of them are creatures like monsters. The more the brawny thought about it, the more outraged he was, and his eyes were full of fear when he looked at Ace and the others. He wiped the cold sweat off his brow, and quickly turned his head to drink the wine in his hand, not daring to look over there again. Seeing that the strong man was no longer in trouble, the little boy was also relieved at this time, and asked Ace, "What would you like to drink?" Ace pointed to the table next to him and said, "Like them, give us some beer too." After finishing speaking, Ace thought of something, and asked, "Is there a chef in your store?" "Yes." The clerk wondered why Ace would ask this question. "That's good." Ace laughed. He had wanted to taste the special fish in Bye Sea for a long time. With a flip of his right hand, the empty fish that had just been taken into the space of different fires landed on the floor of the tavern with a plop, and the fish was still entwined with the water vapor in the Bye Sea. Ace is very satisfied. The fish is very fresh. "Can you cook this fish? I'll pay for the processing fee." Ace gestured with a smile. But at this moment, the tavern was full of needles. Everyone's eyes widened, and they looked at the empty fish that suddenly appeared on the floor with disbelief. Let's not talk about how this empty fish appeared out of thin air. Let's talk about this empty fish. Everyone present is very familiar with it. Is this the offshore killer? The strong man swallowed a mouthful of saliva just now, and he couldn't believe his eyes. You know, in his memory, this terrifying guy has been lurking around Bika Island, always jumping out of the Bye Sea suddenly, swallowing the fishermen on the island in one gulp. This made the fishermen on the island afraid to go fishing, which greatly damaged the fishery development of Bika Island. Everyone has also organized soldiers to hunt and kill this offshore killer, but it can shrink into the size of an ordinary shark to avoid the soldiers' pursuit. But it's just such a scary and cunning guy lying in front of them with his eyes rolled, waiting to be cooked by the chef? What happened to this world? Are they dreaming now? What? Is there any problem? Ace frowned. In his opinion, all Sora should be like this. Sora has a body but is very weak. He can kill him with a single move. But how did he know that the skyfish is also divided into strengths and weaknesses? At least the offshore killer in front of him, in the eyes of ordinary Sky Islanders, is already considered a terrifying category. No. The clerk's head was shaking like a rattle, and he still didn't understand that the three of Ace in front of him, although they looked only in their teens, were definitely strong men he couldn't provoke. After struggling to pick up the poor offshore killer, the clerk staggered into the back kitchen and asked the chef to make 4 or 5 dishes of this empty fish. Ace and Willie drank beer and tasted some empty fish dishes. Their eyes lit up immediately. As expected, the reputation of the empty fish is really good enough, and it can be called a real delicacy. But at this moment, the door of the tavern was suddenly knocked open, and a 12 or 13-year-old girl staggered into the tavern, and said with tears all over her face, "Please, save me." Everyone's eyes were immediately attracted by this little girl. The little girl was dressed in white linen clothes. Although it looked like she had been wearing them for a long time, the little girl obviously loved cleanliness and washed her clothes very white. It's just that because of the haste of running just now, a lot of dust has stuck to the clothes now. This little girl was really cute, and the tears on her face made her even more pitiful, so immediately a drinker said, "Little sister, are you in any trouble? Uncle can help." That's right. Is there any shameless guy who bullies such a cute little girl? The strong man just now also regained his spirits at this time. Although he looked fierce, he was unexpectedly sympathetic. "Brother, I have 3 traps. Street people, don't be afraid, I will protect you." But at this moment, there was a sneer from outside the tavern, saying, "I want to see who dares to control the affairs of our temple." The door of the tavern was directly smashed, and 5 priests wearing white robes and holding long swords walked into the tavern one after another, looked at the people in the tavern and sneered. "She is the person we want in the temple, do you have any opinions?" This time, all the drinkers stopped talking, and all sat back in their original positions with their necks shrunk. Even the strong men who were gangsters were drenched in cold sweat and dared not speak. Ha! Ha! A drinker laughed dryly and said, "So it's a sacrificial offering. Then there's no other way, respectable priests, please feel free." "Huh, you guys are wise." A priest in the head seemed to enjoy the fear of everyone, and said with his head held high, "Actually, our temple offers sacrifices to the gods every year, and it is for the good of everyone. Only in this way can we make Bika Island it's always been smooth sailing." That's it. Many drinkers responded repeatedly, and there was no sympathy in their eyes when they looked at the little girl. Instead, they all took it for granted. Sacrifice. Sacrifice? The little girl's eyes were full of despair. She sat down on the ground, kept retreating, and finally retreated to the table of Ace and others. At this moment, her eyes were red, tears rolled down her face, and she sobbed silently. Do you need help? Ace put down the tableware in his hand, lowered his head and asked the little girl. But what surprised everyone was that the little girl shook her head vigorously. They are from the temple. If you help me, they will not let you go. Obviously, the little girl has been living at the bottom of Bika Island. Although she has always known the name of the temple, she has never had the opportunity to meet these high priests of the temple. So she didn't know the identities of these priests just now, but now that she understands, she doesn't want to put others in danger because of her own reasons. However, Ace was still willing to help in this situation, and let the little girl know that Ace is a good person, so she took out a small package from her arms, handed it to Ace, and said, "Please give this to my brother. He works in the town circus and his name is..." Before the little girl could say her brother's name, she was directly interrupted by the leading priest. "Don't bother. Your brother will accompany you too. This time the priest asked us to prepare a pair of brother and sister. So don't worry, you brothers and sisters will definitely be reunited." What? The little girl's emotions were finally on the verge of collapse this time. She and her brother had always been dependent on each other. In her consciousness, she could die for the temple. But her brother must live on. Now, everything about her was gone. The little girl stood up in grief and indignation, and rushed towards the priest desperately. Boom. The little girl bumped into the priest's body, but she was so thin that the priest's body didn't even move under her impact. "It's an honor for you brother and sister to be a sacrifice. How dare you resist?" The priest grinned grinningly and stretched out his hand to grab the little girl. As long as they took her back, their task this time would be considered complete, and the priest would give them enough rewards. The little girl's face was full of despair and hatred for the temple. She understood that on this island, the Bika temple was the absolute authority. After the two brothers and sisters were caught, they would definitely have a dead end. Gudong. At this moment, Ace drank the beer in the glass in one gulp, disappeared beside the square table in an instant, and stood in front of the little girl, his palms forming claws, pinching the priest's arm like a pair of iron tongs. Huh. The priest's arm was in severe pain and his head was covered with cold sweat, but he still gritted his teeth and threatened. "People from Qinghai. You want to meddle in your own business? On Bika Island, it's not so easy to die if you offend our temple." Ace looked around indifferently for a week. Whether it was a few hideous priests or those numb drinkers, it made him feel sick. He didn't know what the so-called sacrifice of Bika Island was, but just using living people as sacrifices made Ace decide that he would absolutely screw off the head of the so-called priest. Don't let go. After a while, the priest's arm had been pinched by Ai Sisheng, and he could hardly help screaming. Glancing at him indifferently, Ace literally let go of his arm. Hiss. The priest took a breath, and then said with a smirk, "It's good to know that you are afraid. You should hand over Teresa right now, and I can leave you a whole body." Noisy. Ace's voice was flat, blocking Teresa's line of sight, and behind him, the priest's grin was so stiff on his face. In the next second, countless orange flames burst out of his body, instantly burning it into a mass of ashes. Call. A gust of wind blew away the ashes, and neither the drinkers nor the priests in the tavern could say a word at this moment. Devil. Run away. Run away. I don't know who yelled first, and the next moment everyone ran out of the tavern like crazy, smashing the tables and chairs of the tavern into a mess, for fear that they would be burned to ashes if they ran too slowly. Willie, Luo. None of the priests will stay. Ace didn't turn his head, but there was a hint of murderous intent in his voice. Yes. The two of Willie responded, and then disappeared in place in an instant, leaving only a circle of slowly spreading airwaves. And not long after, the screams of several priests came from outside the tavern. "Is your name Teresa? I think you should give this to your brother yourself." Ace smiled and handed the package to Teresa again. "Oh, that's right. You just said that your brother's name is what's going on." The series of changes just now made Teresa a little confused. Now that Ace was talking to her, she didn't react for a while. It wasn't until Ace reminded her again that Treya came to her senses, her face flushed. She took the package with a hint of shyness, and replied. My brother's name is Anilu. Is it such a coincidence?" Ace was really surprised when he heard Enel's name. In fact, since his rebirth, Ace has always felt that he has encountered too many coincidences. Not only did he meet Drake and Ian after joining the Navy, but he also took Luo under his command, and in the days that followed, most of the Shichibukai interacted with him. Now, just as he changed the fate of the Golden Lion, he saved Anilo's sister. Could it be that someone is secretly manipulating his fate? Ace looked up at the sky with a strange expression, then shook his head vigorously, shaking this unreliable thought out of his head. How can it be? This is not writing a novel. Sir, what should I call you? Teresa's voice brought Ace back from his thoughts. Just call me Ace. Ace said with a smile. No matter what the reason is, since he saved Anel's sister because of fate, Ace is not a person who doesn't know how to adapt. Obviously, this is a good opportunity to get in touch with Enel. Okay, Master Ace. Treya added the honorific title of Master after Ace's name, but she seemed a little worried about chasing the two of Willy, after hearing the screams from outside the tavern, asked. My lord, is it okay if you don't help? Haha, don't worry. Willy and Luo are both strong, these screams will not be theirs. Swish. At this moment, the two of Willy reappeared in the tavern, so there is no need to say more, the result is already obvious. The so-called temple priests couldn't even wrinkle Willy's clothes. Captain, those priests said before they died that Teresa's brother had already been tied to the altar and would be dedicated to that so-called god soon. Willy's face was a little dignified. Ace frowned. This is not good news, no matter it is for Tereya in front of him, or for taking Anilu for his own use, Anilu cannot be made a sacrifice. But at the same time, Ace also guessed that Anilu should not have died in this sacrifice, and the reason why he completely destroyed the entire Bika later should be related to Treya in front of him. If it wasn't for the sudden appearance of Ace and others, perhaps the current Treya had already been captured by those priests and sent to the altar as a sacrifice. Go. Go save your brother. By the way, unscrew that priest's head. A gleam of coldness flashed in Ace's eyes, and then he hugged Theria directly by the waist, walked out of the tavern, and swept towards the third floor of Bika Island where the temple was located. Whoosh. Ace's speed was extremely fast, leaping into the air, the strong wind was blowing on his face, and the strands of breath on his body made Treya feel a little blush. But when he thought of his elder brother being in danger, this trace of charm quickly disappeared. Brother, you must be fine. Master Ace is here to save you. At this time, in the center of the Bika temple, on an altar covered with mysterious pictures, a gloomy priest held a white scepter in his hand, staring at Anil in the center of the altar. At this time, Anilo was pale, his upper body was naked, and the snare drum behind him was obviously inserted into his body just now. The blood flowing from his back was all over the ground, converging into thin streams of blood, which flowed from both sides of the altar into the pool next to it. It is not so much a pool as it is a lake, the entire temple is built next to this lake, and the altar is built directly in the lake. Anilu's blood flowed into the lake, and soon faded away, but the priests around seemed to be very confident, thinking that this bloody smell would definitely attract their gods over. What's going on with Deli and the others? The priest knocked on the floor with the scepter in his hand with a gloomy face, looking a little anxious. It's just to catch a little girl, and she hasn't come yet. God will come soon. It's coming. If we don't see the sacrifice, the wrath of God will definitely destroy our entire Bika Island. Bastards. You dare to touch my sister, I must kill you. Anilu was tied to the altar, and after hearing the priest's words, his eyes were tearing apart, and he struggled hard, but this only caused him to die. The blood flowed faster, making his face paler. Boom. Shut up. The priest kicked Anilu's face, and the priest said with a distorted sense of course. Being a sacrifice is the glory of your brothers and sisters, and you did it for the people of the entire island. Sacrifice. Go to your whole island. If something happens to my sister, I will definitely let the whole Bika Island be buried with me. Anilu's eyes were bloodshot, with a kind of madness. Huh. Just because of your current appearance? The priest was full of disdain, and even kicked the snare drum inserted into Anilu's body. Let me tell you the truth. In the eyes of the great God, you are also it's just a dish. If you talk nonsense, I don't mind putting a few more drums on you for decoration. A tearing pain came from Anilo's back, but he still stared at the priest in front of him, wishing to smash him into pieces immediately. Gollum, Gollum. At this moment, countless water bubbles suddenly appeared in the lake, and a huge black shadow appeared in the depths of the lake, and quickly moved towards the altar. The priest's expression changed, his face was a little ugly, and he shouted at the priests behind him, God has come. You go find that bastard Deli for me, and use all your power to capture Theria immediately. Yes. Seeing this black shadow, all the priests showed fear on their faces. When they heard the priest's order, they all rushed out of the temple without hesitation. The priest glanced at Anilu on the ground, and murmured, "I hope that God can wait patiently after enjoying this sacrifice." While speaking, the black shadow had already moved to the front of the altar. Accompanied by the soaring water waves, a huge snakehead broke through the water, raised high, and stood in front of the altar. Gudong. It was not the first time for the priest to see God, but his heart was still full of fear, and he couldn't help swallowing. The part of that God that is exposed to the water is tens of meters long, and the width of the snake's head has also reached an astonishing 10 meters. A pair of cold snake eyes stared at the two people on the altar, and the snake kept swallowing letters. "Great God Joshi. This is a sacrifice offered to you by your people." The priest lay on the ground and retreated respectfully to the back of Anilo, obviously wanting that God to enjoy the food in front of him. "Sacrifice. Please be sure to bless the whole Bika Island with good weather and rain in the coming year." Whoosh. Before the priest finished speaking, he caught a glimpse of the snake letter beside him, and directly rolled Anilo into his mouth. Gudong. There was no scene of blood splattering, but that God swallowed Anilo alive. Is that how Enel died? The priest's body fell even lower on the ground, not daring to move at all. But to the horror of the priest, the God used to turn around and leave after eating the sacrifices, but today it did not leave, but instead locked a pair of cold snake eyes on the priest. It seems that the sacrifice this time did not satisfy it, and it even turned its attention to the priest. This immediately made the priest break into a cold sweat. Whoosh. The sound of the snake letters suddenly rang in the ears of the priest, and immediately made goose bumps all over his body rise. Almost subconsciously, the priest suddenly raised the scepter beside him, and pulled out a knife from it with a bang. Clang. The sound of gold and iron clashing sounded, and this knife was actually a solid famous knife, at least at the level of a large knife. And that God's snake letter is also extremely powerful. In front of such a sharp famous knife, it only broke a trace of the skin, and did not suffer any real damage. Of course, this is also because the priest doesn't know how to use a knife, and even the best knife will have no effect on him. Puff. After all, the priest only blocked the blow with the strength of his weapon. In fact, his strength was very weak, so under this impact, he could only vomit blood and hit the side of the altar. God Joshi. Calm down the anger of God Joshi. The priest didn't have the time to care about his injuries, but lay down on the ground with a face full of fear. "Save my life, and I will definitely offer you more sacrifices." The God seemed to understand the priest's words. The snake eyes flashed, and he got into the water again, but he still didn't leave, but kept swimming around the altar, apparently waiting for the priest to say more sacrifice. The priest stood up again, wiped the cold sweat off his brow, and secretly made up his mind that in addition to capturing Theria and offering it to the gods, he would also arrest a few more boys and girls as sacrifices, so as to appease the wrath of the God. There are as many untouchables as you want. Anyway, as long as you can save your own life, it will be fine to sit firmly in the position of priest. Boom. Boom. But at this moment, several roars came from outside the altar area, which startled the priest immediately. Then several priests ran in with panicked faces. What's going on? Are you looking for death? What if you make such a big commotion and offend that God? The priest yelled at them. What happened to Terea that you caught? Send it here quickly. My lord. The priests were terrified. Terea is here, but she brought a few strong people. Kill anyone she sees. What? The priest's expression changed, and he asked, "How many of them are there?" Three. Three? There are hundreds of guards in the temple. Are they all food? Hearing this number, the priest became angry. He thought how many people there were. Quickly send out the guards and kill these 3 guys. Guards. The guards have already dispatched immediately. The priest seemed to be unable to believe what just happened before his eyes. That's fine. You don't have to worry about this matter. Go out and find me some more sacrifices. The God is getting impatient. The priest's mind is a little confused now. The priest said with some horror. But, for a moment, that person only took a moment, and all the guards have already. At this time, looking at the priest's expression, the priest finally had a sense of foreboding. Boom. But before the priest finished speaking, a loud bang sounded behind him, and then the wall burst open, and the scattered stones suddenly sank into the backs of several priests, sealing their words in his mouth forever inside. Whoosh. Ace took Terea, followed by Willie and Luo, and suddenly appeared on the altar. Guard. Guard. The priest fell to the ground with a thud, holding the knife in his hand, and frantically called out for help. Stop shouting. Ace said indifferently, "They've all gone to hell." Ace didn't have the slightest liking for this Bika temple where the living people were sacrificed, and he didn't want to let anyone here go. At this time, the priest recalled the words of those priests, and finally understood what they meant just now. In an instant, the teenager who looked like a teenager in front of him killed hundreds of elite guards in their temple in just a split second. "Now it is your turn." Ace looked at the priest, his eyes full of murderous intent. "The whole Bika temple, the most damned thing is this person in front of him." "No. You can't kill me." The priest was full of fear. He was the most noble person in the entire Bika island, and he controlled the life and death of everyone on the island. "He can't die." Whoa. Suddenly, the god broke through the water from the lake, and the huge snake body cast a huge shadow, covering the entire altar. "God Joshi, save me." The priest was overjoyed, and pointed at Ace and the others with viciousness. "They are the sacrifices I prepared for you. Where's my brother? How is my brother?" Treya looked around, her face full of anxiety. At this time, the priest was backed by God Joshi, and became arrogant again. "I dedicated that kid to God Joshi a long time ago, and he should have been digested by now." No. Tears welled up in Teresa's eyes, and Ace's pupils also shrank. This result was far beyond his expectation. Could it be that the butterfly effect caused by his appearance pushed Anilo to death instead? "You should take care of yourself." The priest looked at Ace with a smirk. The next moment, the head of God Joshi fell from the sky, burst out at an astonishing speed, and with a terrifying impact, suddenly bit Ace and the others on the altar. Before the attack came, the stench from God Joshi's mouth came first, and the cold light on the tip of the teeth was even more creepy. "I thought it was a god, it turned out to be just a snake." Facing this terrifying attack, Ace squeezed his right fist with a hint of disdain. In the next moment, when the snake head of God Joshi rushed to Ace, his figure suddenly disappeared, and suddenly appeared on the side of God Joshi's head, and then his fist suddenly bombarded, hitting the right side of the snake head on the face. Boom. With a loud noise, the huge snake head suddenly changed its direction under Ace's fist, and a crisp sound came from his skull. Its mouth full of snake teeth sprayed out directly from its mouth. The size gap between Ace and the snake was astonishing, but the result made the expression of the priest on the altar stiffen. Call, thump. The body of God Joshi was first bombarded by Ace and flew out of the water, and then fell back with a plop, floating on the lake on his belly. With just one punch, Ace eliminated this so-called god. Da. Ace fell back onto the altar again, and looked at the priest in front of him indifferently. "Now. How do you want to die?" The priest's hand holding the knife was already trembling, and he knew at this moment that he was sure to die this time. How could he resist when even God couldn't hold back a punch? But just when Ace was about to break the priest's neck, a systematic voice suddenly came out of his mind. "Discover the supreme quick knife." The system's words made Ace focus on the knife in the priest's hand, and raised his eyebrows in surprise. Could this knife hidden in the scepter be a supremely sharp knife? What a windfall. After Ace entered the quasi-general level, he had already discovered that devouring the famous swords of the big fast sword level had little improvement in his strength. Therefore, the appearance of this supreme sharp knife can be said to be a gift in the snow, which can greatly speed up the speed at which Ace improves his strength. But at this moment, the body of God Joshi floating on the water suddenly twitched strangely, and the huge body twisted and rolled continuously on the water. This made the priest's face show a bit of hope again, and he shouted with a trace of fanaticism, "I knew that the god is immortal." Boom. Ace's face was indifferent, and he interrupted the priest's nonsense with a casual palm, pumped him until he spurted blood, and spun to the side. "Hey, even if the snake doesn't die, do you think you can still live?" Ace's words immediately made the priest understand his situation. With the strength of Ace in front of him, he could kill him in an instant, and it was impossible for him to have a chance to escape. With a flick of his hand, Ace's arm turned into flames, stretched out, and directly snatched the supreme sharp knife from the priest's hand. This scene fell into the eyes of the priest, which made him tremble even more, shrinking in the corner and not daring to move. Ace glanced at the priest with disdain. This kind of bullying scum is too much to live in the world, but now Ace is not in a hurry to kill him. Turning his gaze to the big snake that was still rolling, the corner of Ace's mouth raised slightly. "So that's it. So the thunderous fruit is there." Zzz. There was another strange sound, and blue electric sparks appeared on the snake body at this time, and this kind of stimulation finally made God Joshi regain consciousness from the coma. However, after waking up, It seemed to have endured great pain, tossing more violently on the lake. The electric sparks entangled around its body became thicker, and its body twisted into a twisted shape. Trey, don't be sad. Ace wiped away the tears on Therea's face with a smile, and said, your brother is not dead yet. Teresa sobbed and stood beside Ace, with hope rising again on her face. The strength shown by Ace made Treya believe in Ace's words. Is my brother really still alive? And the more dazzling blue lightning in front of him finally made Ace breathe a sigh of relief. He didn't regret saving Theria, but if Enel died because he changed the plot, then Ace I'm about to curse. Fortunately, the thunderous fruit is actually in the snake's belly. Boom. The twisted giant snake finally stopped, and a bloody gash was suddenly blasted into its stomach by Thunderbolt. The bloody water all over the sky showed that this so-called god had completely lost his life. And a group of dazzling ball-shaped thunder broke out from this wound, and suddenly shot into the sky. Rumble. Originally, this was already 100 meters high, and the clouds should be under our feet, but at this moment, the sky suddenly became dark and cloudy, covering the entire sky in an instant, covering the entire Bika Island. What was even more frightening was that the billowing blue lightning in the dark clouds seemed to be boiling, and would form thunder at any moment, turning the entire Bika Island into powder. Dare to touch my sister, I want all of you to be buried with me. Ace looked at the sky speechlessly. It was obvious that the spherical thunder was Anilu who ate the thunder fruit. I know you're angry, but at least you figured out the situation. Your sister is standing here right now. Boom. A bucket-thick blue thunderbolt fell from the sky, and instantly struck a building in the temple. After the roar, the building there had completely disappeared, leaving only a circle of dark pits running through the entire island. Hiss. The thunderous thunderfruit is really strong. It has such power without much development. Ace sighed, looked at the thunder that would fall again in the sky at any time, and said, however, I can't let you do this again, it's messed up. Ace turned his neck, made a clicking sound, and looked at the sky with excitement in his eyes. He has long wanted to fight against the legendary Thor Enel. Boom. Boom. 2 more thunderbolts descended from the sky and struck directly towards the altar. The deafening sound of thunder shook all the stones on the altar and fell off, rolling into the lake one after another. Good come. Ace's eyes lit up, and his body suddenly turned into a pillar of fire soaring into the sky, directly hitting the 2 thunderbolts head-on. Rumbling, at the center of the contact between the flame and the lightning, a terrifying explosion sounded instantly, and the dazzling light produced by the explosion immediately illuminated the entire Bika Island extremely transparently. These monstrous bangs, the rapid transition from darkness to light, have long attracted everyone on the entire island. God, what happened? Is this the end of the world? No one knew what happened. The entire Bika Island was in chaos. Everyone ran to the street in a panic, looking up at the doomsday scene at the top of the island. Where is the temple? The god must be angry. It's the god of thunder, and the god of fire. Get down on your knees and beg God for forgiveness. Frightened, someone attributed this scene to divine power, and immediately knelt down on the ground. The action of one person brought more people, and after a while, all the residents of the entire Bika Island had all knelt on the ground, tremblingly begging for mercy from Ace and Anilu above the temple. Ace didn't know their behavior. At this moment, he was staring excitedly at the thunderbolt going upstream, rushing towards the thundercloud. Flames and thunder splattered everywhere, and finally attracted Anilu's attention. Are you also the priest of the temple? Then you go to die too. Anilu's state at the moment is obviously not right, and he didn't want to communicate with Ace at all. He waved his hands towards Ace, and the thundercloud suddenly rolled wildly, followed by dozens of thunderbolts that were as thick as a water tank, bombarded in front of Ace. Haha. Yanji mirror Hoyan. Ace spun in the air, and the flame formed a spherical mirror that completely wrapped Ace's body, and the thunder hit the flame mirror almost at the same time. Immediately there was another terrifying explosion, and the airwave enveloped the entire sky in a screen of smoke. To die. Seeing that Ace was overwhelmed by the thunder, his eyes were covered with a layer of black air, but his murderous aura became more intense, and his body merged into the thundercloud, so he wanted to launch an attack with all his strength, and immediately wiped out the entire Bika Island. Whoosh. But at this moment, a black shadow suddenly swept out from the smokescreen, rushed to the top of Anilu's head in an instant. His body rotated in a huge arc, and slammed on Anilu's body with a leg. Wake me up. Boom. Anilu couldn't resist this attack at all. His whole body was sunken from it, and he was kicked directly from the air. Boom. It suddenly hit the altar, and the gravel flew away, forming a stone pit. Originally, after Anilu ate the thunderous fruit, his body could turn into a thunderbolt and be directly immune to all physical attacks. At least for a long time in the future, he would enjoy this feeling of invincibility. But unfortunately, as soon as he ate the thunderous fruit, he met Ace, who mastered domineering. Wow! As Anilu fell from the sky, the dark clouds in the sky finally began to slowly dissipate, revealing the sun again. Swish! Ace fell from the sky and stood beside the stone pit where Anilu was. After enduring such a terrifying attack, he didn't seem to be hurt at all. A few electric sparks flashed on Ace's body, which he directly extinguished with his raised hand, and then Ace shook his head in disappointment. Anil, who just ate the thunderous fruit, is still too weak. Skills such as Thunder Dragon and Thor are definitely not available to Anil now, so after discovering this, Ace ended the battle directly and simply. It seems that if you want to compete with Anilu, who is in full condition earlier, I have to help him develop fruits faster and strengthen his strength. Ace sighed, stepped forward 2 steps, and looked at him Enel in the stone pit. Huh. Ace snorted. Anilu received a domineering blow from Ace, and obviously should have fallen into a coma, but at this time, Anilu's brows were blackened, his emotions seemed to be drawn by some kind of emotion, and his body was constantly twitching. Is the curse in the devil fruit? Can it affect people's emotions? Ace narrowed his eyes slightly. It seems that the arrogant personality after Enel was obviously also affected by this time. How to do it? Hiss! Suddenly, Ace felt the falling heart flame in his body tremble, and wanted to poke his head out of his body. Want to come out? Ace's heart moved, but he didn't stop it, but raised his right hand, letting the orange falling heart flame coil around his palm. Sizzle! Fallen heart flame vomited the snake letter twice more, and looked at Anilu on the ground, with a hint of greed in his eyes in a humane manner. Hey, this is my intended partner. You have to save his life. Ace said a little speechlessly, before the fallen heart flame eliminated the curse, but directly burned the capable person to death. Seemingly understanding what Ace meant, falling heart flame's little head nodded. Then, with a whoosh, it rushed to Anilu's body, and even got in directly from his heart. Then Ace saw the black energy on Anilu's body tumbling and surging, as if he had encountered a natural enemy. He kept struggling. However, it only persisted for a while, and suddenly it was harvested into a ball, and then it was swallowed in one gulp. Then, fallen heart flame got out of Anilu's body with puffed cheeks, and planned to return to Ace's body. You spit it back. Ace said with a dark face, did you eat something you shouldn't eat? Falling heart flame opened his eyes and puffed his mouth, looking innocent. And a little cute. Cute ass. It's useless to be cute. Quickly spit back the ability of the thunder fruit to Anilu. Ace was also a little shocked at this time. If he hadn't improved his control over the different fires, he really wouldn't have discovered the ability of the falling heart flame. Fallen heart flame can not only remove the curse, but can also snatch other people's devil fruit ability by the way. However, after taking the fruit ability, the original ability user will also die, and Ace himself cannot obtain this ability, so he can only give it to others. But this is already very perverted. From then on, all devil fruit users are just a dish in front of Ace. Those enemies, after Ace kills them, can plunder their abilities and give them to his members. Moreover, the ability users under Ace no longer have to worry about not being able to swim. After the curse is lifted, they can all become good swimmers. However, Ace certainly didn't want to watch Anilu die like this. He couldn't do such a thing yet. Puff. Under Ace's order, falling heart flame finally spit out the ability of the thunder fruit back into Anilu's body, and then burrowed back into Ace's body with some grievances. And Anilu's breathing finally calmed down, and then his eyes opened suddenly, his face was still in pain, and he murmured Teresa's name in his mouth. I'm sorry. Brother didn't protect you well. As he said that, lightning began to flash again on his body. Obviously, even without the guidance of the curse, the pain in Anilu's heart might still make his ability go berserk. Go and say hello to your brother. I'm afraid that if it's later, he's going to seek death again, Ace said helplessly to Theria. Elder brother. Seeing that Anilu was really alive at this time, Treya finally couldn't help but rushed forward, tears welled up in her eyes, and hugged her brother at once. I'm fine, I'm fine. Trey. Anilu looked at the younger sister in his arms, his eyes gradually widened, his face was in disbelief at first, then ecstasy quickly flooded his face, and finally he couldn't help but shed tears from his eyes. Holding Teresa tightly in her arms, she just kept repeating, it's fine, it's fine. Did it turn out to be two brothers and sisters hugging each other and crying? Ace rubbed his nose, and then laughed. However, this feeling is not bad. It can change the fate of others and make everyone's life better. Yes. The captain always brings happiness, Willie added. Ace shuddered when he heard this. It was too nasty to praise him. But seeing Willie's serious look, Ace understood that he was absolutely serious, so he could only shake his head with a wry smile. Forget it. Forget it, just be disgusting. After waiting for a while, seeing that the two brothers and sisters Anilu had almost expressed their emotions, Ace coughed twice and said, I said Anilu, you two brothers and sisters will have a lot of time to exchange feelings in the future. There is something waiting for you to deal with. Anilu's attention was finally attracted by Ace, and he asked with some doubts. You are? Well, just after co-authoring for so long, Anilu was in a dazed state, and he didn't even know who Ace was. Master Ace is our savior. Teresa blushed and replied, if it wasn't for you, I would have been caught as a sacrifice. Anilu glanced at his sister's flushed face, and seemed to understand something. Could it be that my sister fell in love with this savior? You can't repay your life-saving grace. Anilu bent down and bowed deeply, and then said, if you don't want to be a benefactor, you can marry my younger sister. What's the situation? This question caught Ace at once, and it can be said that he did not expect this kind of development at all. How touching the feelings you two brothers and sisters showed just now. In the end, are you so casual about your sister's marriage? So you are such an enel. Ace held back the complaints that were about to blurt out, coughed twice in embarrassment, and said, haha, it's best to ask the person's wishes for this kind of thing first. Having said that, Ace winked at Theria. He meant to tell Theria to refuse and take care of his brother. As a result, Treya's face turned even redder. She lowered her head to her chest, and said in a low voice, if it's Master Ace, I am willing. Cough cough. Ace coughed again in a series of jerks, completely unexpected that the brother and sister gave him a combined punch. Haha, I think you should follow the captain. Willie and Luo gloated a little behind. They had never seen Ace in such an embarrassment, and they looked very interesting unexpectedly. Ace wanted to look up to the sky and sigh at this time. He would never have thought that he would feel this kind of lonely feeling. Even his crew would not help him. At this moment, Ace caught a glimpse of the priest in the corner. His eyes lit up, and he found a breakthrough to divert his attention. The priest also seemed to feel Ace's gaze, and suddenly his hairs exploded. Whoosh. Without giving the priest any time to react, Ace appeared beside him in an instant, grabbed him by the collar, lifted him up, and threw him in front of Anilu. I'll leave this guy to you. Swish. At this time, Anilu's attention was immediately attracted by the priest. Regarding the priest who almost killed their brother and sister, Anilu had no intention of letting him go. Don't kill me. I can make everyone on the island worship you as a god. From now on, you will be the god of our Bika Island. The priest still wanted to make a final struggle, but Anilu's words made him fall into complete despair. If we begged for mercy back then, would you let me, our brother and sister? Anilu's eyes were full of murderous intent. So, you just die honestly. Do not. In desperation, the priest turned around and ran towards the edge of the altar, leaping out with all his strength, wanting to jump into the lake to escape. Boom. What speed can surpass lightning? It is impossible for the priest to have a chance to escape this kind of attack. A dazzling thunderbolt fell from the sky and instantly bombarded the priest. The blazing lightning directly turned him into a ball of pitch-black coke, which exploded suddenly. Dead without a corpse. Ace slammed his mouth while watching. His ability to divert attention is good. This priest deserves to die, but I can't blame me. Ace sighed in his heart, and then he was afraid that the topic would turn back, so he immediately asked Anilu. How is it? Now that the enemy has been killed, what will you do in the future? What plan? Ace's question stunned Anilu for a moment. He glanced at the electric spark shining in his palm and realized that his life had completely changed since he acquired this ability. I have no idea. Anilu's expression was very complicated. Before today, his dream was to work hard to earn a good dowry for his sister, so that she could marry a good family. But when their brothers and sisters became sacrifices, all those familiar friends and bosses all looked indifferent when they saw them, watching them being taken away by the priest. Is such a place worth their while? Would you like to join our Yandi pirates? Go to Qinghai with us. Ace said with a smile. This world is very exciting. Compared with that, this Bika Island can only be regarded as a small well. Ace's words moved Anilu a little bit, and the powerful strength shown by Ace made Anilu believe that what he said must be true. Master Ace must be considered the strongest in Qinghai. Anilu's waist was still hurting a little at this time, and he vaguely remembered that it was Ace who defeated him with one move. After swallowing the thunderous fruit, Anilo felt his body was full of power, and had an illusion of invincibility until he was awakened by Ace. Haha, I'm not the strongest, in that sea, there are too many people stronger than me, Ace said modestly. Is it? There was no fear on Anilo's face, but a trace of excitement. As a man, there is some risk factor in his bones, and Anilo has already raised a little yearning for the Qinghai depicted by Ace. Brother, I also want to go and see. There was light in Trey's eyes, and she glanced at Ace. She knew that Ace was from Qinghai, and she wanted to see what Ace's hometown looked like. It is good. The sister's words finally made Anilo make up his mind. He stretched out his right hand towards Ace, and said, Captain, please give me more advice in the future. Ha ha ha. Ace laughed and shook Anilo's hand. Please give me your advice. At the end of the 14th year of the Great Pirate Era, the future Thor Enel was finally abducted by Ace into his Entei pirates. Captain, shall we go to Qinghai now? Nilu obviously couldn't wait. Don't worry. Ace said with a smile. Your current strength is not strong. Let me help you train for a while. After half a year, when you have mastered the ability of the Thunder Fruit to a certain level, I will guide you go see a big scene. Eston paused, and his eyes drifted into the distance. Even in Qinghai, it is definitely rare to see. A week later, the Marine Headquarters Marine Vander. The Warring States Marshal has been away for a week, and personally went to the Great Airway to hunt down Fire Fist Ace. Temporarily sitting in the headquarters is Admiral Aokiji of the Navy Headquarters. Ilara. Why are there so many files? Aokiji had a pair of blindfolds on his head, with thick dark circles under his eyes. Looking at the pile of documents piled up on the desk in front of him, his face was full of collapse. Admiral of the Navy is really not a human job. My lord, hurry up. This is just the document from the day before yesterday. The secretary's voice made Aokiji's face even more ugly. Why me? Aokiji raised his head to the sky and sighed. Where are those two guys, Red Dog and Yellow Monkey? My lord, don't you care about our Navy's intelligence? The secretary said in disbelief. Both the two generals were seriously injured. Marshal Warring States went out this time just to deal with this matter. Huh. Aokiji's face was filled with surprise. Who can seriously injure the two of them? Could it be that the four emperors made a move? It's Fire Fist Ace. The secretary's face was full of black lines, and he was speechless for the slightly lazy general in front of him. Ace? Could it be that a figure rivaling the emperor has appeared on the sea? Boom. Before Aokiji asked who Ace was, the door of the office was slammed open, and a brigadier shouted in horror. General, go out and have a look. The dozens of warships in the harbor have all floated into the sky. How is it possible? The secretary yelled out with some gaffes. That's a naval warship. The weight of each ship is a terrifying figure. Dozens of ships have floated into the sky. It's true. The brigadier general was a little anxious. At this moment, the ear-piercing siren sounded. This is the A-level alarm for the invasion of the enemy. Someone can do it. Aokiji also became serious at this moment. He pushed the table away, and stood up with a serious face. Only he can do it. The remnants of that old era. Whoa. Aokiji's body suddenly shattered into a piece of ice, and disappeared into the office in an instant. Old times? The secretary was a little dazed, but then his eyes widened suddenly, and the information of the legendary pirate flashed in his mind. Gold. Golden Lion? Gia ha 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 ha. The pirate ship Golden Lion made of the entire island is floating in the air, and the Golden Lion stands on the bow and laughs wildly. He opened his arms, his blonde hair danced wildly, and dozens of huge warships were under his control, circling the Golden Lion crazily. Some sailors on the ship, who had no time to escape, let out screams and were thrown away, and then fell to the ground suddenly, splashing dazzling blood-colored flowers. Carp. Sengoku. Come out to me quickly. The crazy sound of the Golden Lion resounded through the sky, and several warships suddenly fell from the sky, heading straight for the fortress of the headquarters. Whoosh. A mass of cold ice suddenly appeared in front of the fortress, and suddenly turned into a green pheasant wearing a white suit. With a solemn expression, he looked up at the speeding warship, opened his arms, and shouted. Ice cube burst pheasant's mouth. Caw caw caw. After a tooth-piercing click, several huge icebergs made of ice cubes flew out of the arms of the green pheasant in an instant, and bumped into the warship. Boom. A huge explosion resounded throughout the naval headquarters, and the iceberg slammed several falling warships into pieces, turning into little ice flowers and falling to the ground. As for the remaining sailors on the warship, even Aokiji couldn't care about it. After all, if the warship hits the fortress, it will definitely cause greater losses. Golden Lion. Lieutenant General Garp and Marshal Sengoku are not in the headquarters now. If you have anything to do, just tell me. After all, Aokiji is not a cold-blooded red dog. Very heavy. You put down all the warships first. Jia ha ha ha. The Golden Lion spit out a smoke ring with a cigar in his mouth, and said with disdain on his face, "Young man Qingqi, you are not qualified to negotiate terms with me. Calling that old guy from the Warring States period is almost the same." Qingzi's face darkened suddenly, and he gritted his teeth and counterattacked. HMPH. Do you think you were still the Golden Lion back then? Wouldn't it be good to honestly become a legend? From Aokiji's point of view, after the Golden Lion lost his legs, his strength was not even as good as him. What? Aokiji's words seemed to have enraged Golden Lion. His body floated up from the bow of the boat, and he even drew out the two knives around his waist. Boy, who do you think I am? At this time, Qingqi also saw the intact legs of the Golden Lion. His pupils shrank suddenly, and he suddenly had an ominous premonition. How is this possible? Who helped the Golden Lion recover? Since Garp and Sengoku are not here, then you can help me give them a message. The high-altitude wind howls, and the Golden Lion just stands in the sky out of thin air, with blonde hair dancing wildly, and its figure is domineering and awe-inspiring. My Golden Lion. I'm back. Then, the Golden Lion roared violently and shook its right hand. At this moment, dozens of warships were pulled by gravity again, and even under the control of the Golden Lion, their speed was even more astonishing. Immediately, it slammed into the fortress of the headquarters with a thunderous force. But it's not over yet. Jihahahaha. The Golden Lion's face was full of madness, and he experienced this hearty feeling again, which made him extremely intoxicated. Condescending. Sakura 10. Dead wood, in his hand suddenly cut out two golden sword lights piercing the sky, and cut straight towards the word, Navy, on the fortress. Impossible. Qingqi erupted with icy cold air all over the sky, and desperately blocked dozens of warships that descended from the sky, but the two sword auras of the Golden Lion made his face change drastically. His premonition just now was right. The Golden Lion in front of him has really completely recovered its strength back then. Once again became the flying pirate who made the whole sea tremble, Golden Lion. Boom. Boom. Aokiji had only one person, so of course it was impossible to stop all the warships. After Aokiji tried his best, more than a dozen warships crashed on the fortress of the headquarters. The terrifying impact caused violent tremors. The densely packed stones fell off the walls of the fortress. Countless sailors were unable to stand still amidst the shock, and were smashed into a mass of fleshy mud by the falling stones. Base. Base. In the next second, the two golden sword chi slashed on the fortress without any resistance, and the word, Navy, representing glory was torn into several parts by the sword chi, leaving two pieces before and after cutting. Ugly scars. Boom. Boom. The Navy of the headquarters is worthy of being an elite. After the panic, many sailors still returned to their posts, raised their muzzles high, and fired countless shells at the Golden Lion in the sky. But after the Golden Lion swung those two knives, it controlled the Golden Lion and flew towards higher altitudes, away from the Navy headquarters. The range of those artillery can't touch the corner of the Golden Lion at all. Boy Aokiji. Since Carp and the others are not here, I will give you a small warning this time. Also, tell those disgusting Tianlong people that in half a year, I will go to Marie Joya to visit them in person. Jihahahaha. The crazy laughter of the Golden Lion gradually faded away, but a seed of fear was planted in the hearts of all the sailors present. Is this kind of powerhouse really something they can deal with? Aokiji fell from the sky to the square, glanced at the heavy casualties and the blood flow of the sailors in the headquarters, and then glanced at the word, Navy, that was cut into several parts on the fortress. His heart sank to the bottom of the valley. This provocation by the Golden Lion is absolutely terrifying to the morale of the Navy. Especially the word, Navy, which represents honor, was engraved with a scar of shame by a pirate. If the situation here is leaked, it will definitely make ordinary people doubt the strength of the Navy in their hearts. Moreover, what did the last words of that madman mean? Does he still want to take the initiative to attack Mary Hoya? Does he want to find death? He even dared to announce in advance that the people who will meet the Golden Lion in Marijoya will definitely be the strongest combat power of the Navy and even the government. Even if the Golden Lion has returned to its peak, it will definitely be a dead end at that time. Unable to understand Jin Shizi's true thoughts, Aokiji could only shake his head and ignore it, but started to block the news here today. If this matter gets out, the blow to the Navy's reputation will be too great. Aokiji gritted his teeth. Wow la la la, but at this moment, the sound of flapping wings suddenly sounded from all corners of the headquarters, and dozens of newsbirds scattered in all directions, flying desperately towards the sky. Aokiji's expression changed drastically. He was about to try his best to block the news, but he didn't expect something to go wrong right away. Morgans, you really dare. Aokiji gritted his teeth. These newsbirds are obviously controlled by Morgans, the president of the World Economic News Agency. That guy controls half of the press. Even the world government relies on his ability and can only cooperate with him. Aokiji didn't expect him to appear at this time. If these newsbirds are allowed to fly away, it will be impossible to talk about blocking the news. Aokiji can guarantee that within 2 days, the whole world will know the news of the Golden Lion making trouble at the Navy headquarters. Ice cube with 2 thorns. The cold air instantly formed more than a dozen sharp ice spears on the side of Aokiji, and under the precise control of Aokiji, they shot at the newsbirds struggling to flap their wings. Puff puff. The sound of sharp blades sinking into flesh and blood sounded, and without exception, more than a dozen newsbirds all fell to the ground without even making a scream. After all, Aokiji is an admiral of the Navy headquarters, and a person with natural fruit abilities. It is very easy to prevent a few birds from flying away. Woo! Seeing that the newsbirds were all pierced by ice spears, Aokiji breathed a sigh of relief, as long as the scene here is not spread. But why do I still feel a little uneasy in my heart? Chingchi glanced at the bird carcass on the ground, his face still a little gloomy. At this time, the screams of the sea soldiers made Aokiji no time to think, so he could only turn around and deal with the aftermath. At the same time, by an island near the headquarters of the Navy, hundreds of newsbirds were flying in the air, and a rope was tied to their feet, and a small pavilion was hung on the other side of the rope. Oh, Morgans, who looked like a bird, patted his chest for fear, and put down the videophone bug in his hand. You really deserve to be an admiral. My precious child was completely wiped out with one move. But. Morgans grinned again, with an extremely excited expression on his face. He held up the pictures copied from the videophone bug and said, "You are still a step too late. I have all the pictures I should have. Golden Lion, you are really my old friend. You have given me such great news. Ha 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 ha." Relying on his special devil fruit ability, Morgans has controlled countless newsbirds under his command. For decades, he has published newspapers in this sea and manipulated the direction of public opinion. His whereabouts are erratic, so even the world government can only adopt the method of cooperating with him, thus indirectly controlling public opinion. Moreover, as a journalist, Morgans is good at dancing and slick in all directions. In the past few decades, he has maintained close contact with many powerful people in the sea. Some colleagues said that he wasted so much energy, simply looking for trouble for nothing, wasting effort. Morgans often smiles without saying a word, but in his heart he disdains these guys' ideas. The best news is always in the hands of those who are prepared. No, because of the connection with the Golden Lion more than 10 years ago, before the big news this time, the Golden Lion, the first thing that came to mind was Morgans. And the price he has to pay is nothing more than adding an insignificant subtitle under the news. Taking out a phone bug with a bird head mask, Morgans directly contacted the staff of his news agency, and said with excitement on his face, "I'm Morgans, change the front page of the newspaper tomorrow, and immediately replace it with the manuscript I sent you. Ha ha ha, tomorrow's newspaper will definitely drive the whole world crazy." "Okay, President," the staff said, "the original manuscript should be released on the subpage. It is the manuscript provided by the Vice President." "Oh? Talk about it." Morgans became a little curious. His Vice President usually doesn't write manuscripts himself. Last night, 4 powerful giants teamed up to break into Judicial Island, storming all the way to the Gate of Justice, destroying half of the island's buildings, and hacking down the judge of Judicial Island. Finally, before the arrival of the Navy's reinforcements, they took the 2 giant guards from Judiciary Island and headed off. Hearing this, Morgan's expression became weird. This is really a troubled time. The 2 most important locations of the Navy were attacked on the same day, and they were completely destroyed. Morgan's keen sense of smell in journalism for many years told him that troubled times are approaching. Sighing, Morgan said, "In other words, there is another powerful team composed of 6 giants in this sea. Just like the giant pirates 100 years ago? Yes, to be precise, 4 of these 6 giants were members of the giant soldiers pirates back then, and they left their flags on Judiciary Island. The pirate flag of the giant soldiers pirates, but for some reason, there is a strange flame around the skull on the flag. Flame? Morgans had no clue. Of course he would not have thought that the giant soldier pirates were now under the Yandi pirates, and those flames were the symbol of the Yandi pirates. But this didn't stop Morgans from laughing loudly. It's really interesting. Then put this news on the subpage of the newspaper. I think tomorrow's newspaper will definitely cause even more headaches for the world government, ha ha ha. Yes. Next, after receiving the manuscript and pictures sent by Morgans, the staff of the news agency immediately put into intense work. Typesetting and printing continued until late at night. Immediately afterwards, countless newsbirds carried newspapers and spread the news to every corner of the sea. The first side of the newspaper was just two huge pictures. The first picture shows the golden lion floating high in the sky, with his arms raised high, his beard and hair stretched out, and he is domineering, and he is surrounded by dozens of huge naval warships. His terrifying ability brings a sense of despair. Pressure. The second picture is of wailing naval soldiers, a mess of ruins, and the background of this picture is the dilapidated fortress of the Navy headquarters, and the word, Navy, that has been cut into several parts. The legendary great pirate Golden Lion destroys the Navy headquarters. Gauntlet. The Golden Lion takes Mary Hoya in half a year. A 2-page long article was printed in the newspaper, and Morgans even made a big publicity for the Golden Lion to summon his subordinates in the article based on the deal with the Golden Lion. The next day, in the early morning sunshine, News Bird delivered the newspaper to its destination. Before the Navy and the world government reacted, countless people had already seen this headline article. Hi. The Navy headquarters was defeated. The whole world set off an uproar. The civilians in various countries all over the world opened their eyes wide in horror, and their hands holding the newspaper trembled slightly. What kind of monster is this Golden Lion that can break through the naval headquarters of countless strong men? The previous news that Huaquan Ace seriously injured 2 generals has already made civilians doubt the strength of the Navy. It didn't take long before the Navy headquarters was breached by a big pirate. The invincible image of the Navy that has been erected over the years is already crumbling in the hearts of civilians. There are even countless pirates roaming the sea, roaring excitedly, venting the emotions gushing in their hearts. And some villains or dreamers who forcibly suppress the restlessness in their hearts because of the strength of the Navy, after seeing this news, all put going out to sea on the agenda. As the Golden Lion said, there is no shortage of lunatics in this world, and countless vicious pirates have already begun to plan to join the Golden Lion and participate in the world's top Marie Joya battle half a year later. In the days to come, the sea will be even more chaotic. New World, Whitebeard Pirates, Moby Dick. Shiji. What exactly do you want to do? Whitebeard sat cross-legged, with his big knife standing beside him, looking at the newspaper in his hand, with a trace of sadness on his face. Could it be that the world is no longer able to is your ship loaded? Whitebeard has fought against the Navy for most of his life. Of course he knows the true strength of the Navy and will not be disturbed by articles in the newspaper. The government and the Navy have stood at the pinnacle of this world for more than 800 years, and no one knows how many cards they have. Therefore, the Golden Lion has no chance of winning when he goes to marry Hoya half a year later. Whitebeard felt the will of the Golden Lion to die in this operation. Gollum. But at the next moment, Whitebeard suddenly grabbed the flagon beside him and drank heavily. Kulalalala, Golden Lion, the old man seems to understand what you think. Whitebeard looked up to the sky and laughed. Do you want to have a glorious ending? Do you want to use your last life to fight with that guy Roger? Comparing the length? Dad. Marco looked worried, and the team captains such as Joz and Sack also surrounded him. I'm fine, don't worry about me, Whitebeard said as he stood up, grabbed the big knife beside him, and walked to the bow of the Moby Dick. Boom. The big knife hit the bow of the ship, and the terrifying force made the whole ship tremble. His eyes looked into the distance, as if he was watching someone on the other side of the sea. Sons. Let me know and get ready. The old friend wants to end in glory. How can I not witness it with my own eyes? Kulalalala. Half a year later, the goal is marry Hoya. Yes, Dad. The eyes of the captains also showed brilliance. And in the corner of the Moby Dick, Blackbeard Titch also showed ecstasy on his face, and roared in his heart. Thief ha 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 ha. It seems that the times are about to go berserk. Above Mary Joya, I don't know there is no dark fruit. New world and no country. The irritable Kaido shattered a mountain next to the base of the beast's pirates, and all the pirates under him were afraid to speak. After receiving news of the death of Droughtjack from Kaido, he was so angry that he had already raised all the mountains within 100 miles to the ground. What? What's going on? A member who just came back from the outside asked stutteringly. Hey, the person in the know said, it's not that Fire Fist Ace who not only killed Mr. Droughtjack, but also wiped out the entire Don Quixote family. The captain is counting on Doflamingo to research artificial devil fruit's woolen cloth. That's right, but before this even started, the dream of the captain's group of devil fruit users was shattered. So the captain can't wait to tear that ace up. Boom. Kaido, who had vented a lot, jumped over a distance of several hundred meters in one step, and landed in the center of the camp with a bang, immediately turning countless members of the pirate group on their backs. Today's newspaper. Kaido roared sullenly. Immediately, someone tremblingly handed the newspaper to Kaido. It has to be said that although the strong are respected in the world of One Piece, they all have a good habit of reading newspapers every day. Huh. Kaido looked at the contents of the newspaper for a moment, and then suddenly beat his chest excitedly, as if he had forgotten the death of Jack and Doflamingo in a blink of an eye. How can a war of this level be without me, Kaido? Ha 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 ha. You all guard my home, I will go to participate in it. After finishing speaking, Kaido took such big strides and rushed out towards Wano with bursts of bangs. All the members of the Beast's pirates stayed in the camp and looked at each other. They understood that their extremely belligerent captain must want to go to war alone again. But, Captain, there are still half a year. Someone raised their hands high, as if wanting to remind Kaido, but at this time Kaido had disappeared at the end of their sight. Click. Zhang Guo looked at the newspaper in his hand and smashed the table in front of him. The veins on his forehead were exposed, and he gritted his teeth with hatred. Golden Lion. And that Morgan's, it's really hateful. He didn't expect that he just spent a week chasing Ace at sea, and the Navy headquarters was taken away, and even Judiciary Island was mostly destroyed by several giants. What the hell is Aokiji doing? This kind of news has not been blocked. Warring states knew that if these two incidents had not been exposed, the impact would not be too great, but now almost the whole world knows the gaffe of the Navy and the government. It's going to be a mess. There is anxiety in the eyes of the warring states, but now is obviously not the time to hesitate, and the impact of this incident must be minimized as soon as possible. He took a deep breath to regain his energy, called the herald into the office, and spoke at the fastest speed. First, immediately order the various branches of the Navy to immediately take action to shut down the pirate groups in the area under their jurisdiction, to show the civilians the power of the Navy, and to cooperate with local officials to appease the hearts of the people. Second, immediately contact the government's propaganda department and let the newspapers under their control try their best to print newspapers. They must do their best to publicize the invincibility of the Navy and the stupidity of the Golden Lion. Print all the previous incidents of the Golden Lion being arrested by the Navy. Go up. Thirdly, it's time to use those Shichibukai. Order them to help Marie Joya in half a year. Those who don't come will be stripped of their Shichibukai titles and will be punished by the Navy and the government. Chase and kill with all your strength. A cold light flashed in Zhang Guo's eyes, and he issued the final order. Now, order the crew to turn the rudder. I want to go to Donghai Windmill Village in person. I don't believe that old fellow Carp, he won't come out of the mountain under such circumstances. Chambord Islands, a rip-off bar. Rayleigh wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and glanced at Luffy, who was sweating profusely from training, with a satisfied expression on his face. Originally, he accepted Luffy as an apprentice, somewhat disgusted by Carp, but after teaching Luffy for a week, he saw great potential in Luffy. It can be said that if there is no ace, he will definitely pin the hope of the new era on Luffy in front of him. After some guidance, Lei Li picked up the newspaper that Sha Chi handed him. Huh? Lei Li's pupils shrank. Golden Lion. Is this guy crazy? His strength has dropped even more than mine. And many more. Lei Li adjusted his glasses, and was surprised to find that the Golden Lion's legs had grown back. How can that be? Wrong. Rayleigh thought of Ace who was kidnapped by the Golden Lion, and his own strength recovered under Ace's elixir. His eyes flashed, and he immediately had a guess. It must be Ace again. I didn't expect the captain's son to have so many magical abilities. The corner of Lei Li's mouth rose, and he smiled and said to himself, since Ace is also involved, then when the time comes, I have to say let's go to Marie Joya. Bye-bye hi, Bika Island. Ah, Ace sneezed and rubbed his nose, he always had a weird premonition. The incident of the Golden Lion attacking Marie Joya was precisely created by Ace. His original script was for the Golden Lion to attack Marie Joya directly, but now he always feels that he seems to have missed something. Out of his control? Forget it. Let's try to improve Anilo's strength before that. Ace didn't bother with this question, but looked at a thunderbird flying over the temple in front of him with a smile. He had to admire Enel's talent. In just 1 week, Anilo had mastered it. 300 million volt moves. If he continues to improve at this rate, Ace is sure that Enel will reach the strongest state in the anime in half a year. By that time, Anilo's strength will be infinitely close to the general level. And after Ace devoured the supreme sword of the priest, his strength has also improved, and the current attribute panel has also changed. Attributes. Constitution, Quasi-General, 2 Spiritual Fire Essence Body Ju, 6th Stage. Body Energy. 25 340ths Eliminate Magic Energy, 532 different fires. Low Level, Falling Heart Flame, Qinglian Ground Core Fire, Volcanic Stone Flame. Intermediate Level, Juyu Golden Ancestral Fire. Not only has Ace's physique been raised to the 2nd level of the Quasi-General, but the curse in the Thunder Fruit is obviously higher than the normal level for some reason, and it has brought Ace a full 2 points of magic energy. This means that Ace can exchange at least 5 Kingming Shoudens, plus the original remaining 1. Ace can increase the lifespan of the 6 people by 10 years. Just half a year. Our Yandi pirates can block at least 3 generals. There was confidence in Ace's eyes, and at the same time, there was a hint of murderous intent on his face. Maybe, when the time comes, we can take advantage of the chaos and find a chance to completely deal with that guy Red Dog. In 2 lifetimes, Ace has never forgotten his hatred. After being reborn, Ace has worked hard for this for 2 years, and now the day of revenge is finally not far away. 15 years into the era of the Great Pirate, just after Ace was 1 year older. All the armies of the various branches of the Navy on the Great Route, as well as the armies of the branches within the 4 seas, all made a massive attack to wipe out the pirates in their respective jurisdictions with a thunderous force. But what the Navy never expected was that after the sea was calm for a few weeks, countless villains and dreamers with dreams and ambitions Yong Fan went to sea, hung the flag of pirates, and risked their lives to chase power, money and fame. Compared with before the Navy wiped out the pirates, more pirates broke out, dreaming that one day they could laugh like a golden lion and spread their reputation all over the world. All of a sudden, relying on the strength of the branches and branches alone has no time to stop all the pirates, and the terrifying chaos of pirates ravaged the entire sea. And most pirates are not pure adventurers like Ace and Luffy. They chase their inner desires more, burn, kill, loot and commit all kinds of crimes, causing the whole world to fall into panic. At this time, the newspapers published by the world government in the Warring States period, so-called comforting people, had little effect. People simply can't trust a navy that can't protect them, and trust in the world government's promises is minimal. This situation greatly exceeded the expectations of the Warring States period. His face was extremely gloomy. In order to restore the confidence of the people of the member states, he could only disperse the strongest combat forces from the Navy headquarters and send them to various places to suppress the riots. Admiral Aokiji, as well as Admirals Akainu and Kizaru, who were able to resume operations, took more than a dozen lieutenant generals from the Navy headquarters and dispatched them in person. Together with their lives, they were completely strangled in this boundless sea. It took a full 4 months for the Navy to forcefully suppress the momentum of the riots, and it also allowed people to slightly regain their confidence in the Navy. However, under this wave of pirates, those Nova pirates who have withstood the pressure of the Navy will definitely bring more trouble to the Navy in the future. But at this moment, there are less than 2 months left before the attack time announced by the Golden Lion. In order to deal with the attack of the Golden Lion, the Navy has no time to deal with this potential threat, so it can only shrink its forces first, and call all the generals and lieutenant generals back to Mary Joya for the final war mobilization. 2 months passed in a flash. At this time, Malichaoya had become a huge barracks besides the luxurious city of the Tianlong people. Tens of thousands of camps stood densely on the Red Earth continent, and nearly naval officers gathered here to wipe the weapons in their hands. In the tall tent in the center, Zhang Guo and the 3 admirals were all sitting on the ground, but the person sitting on the main seat was not Zhang Guo. Warring States. Are all the video phone bugs ready? This man's hair was as white as snow, but he exuded a domineering aura of a superior person invisibly. Yes. Commander. Warring States looked at this man with great respect. The phone bugs are all ready. This war will be broadcast simultaneously to all countries that join the world government. This person is the former admiral of the Navy and the current commander-in-chief of the world government's army Steel Bones Kong. Okay. A cold light flashed in Gang Gakong's eyes, with a murderous look on his face. Let's kill that lion with absolute power. Let everyone understand that in this world, who has the final say? Warring States and the 3 generals didn't speak, but their eyes revealed strong confidence. This time, they dispatched all members of the Navy. The 3 generals plus a commander above the general level, and even the veteran commander Steel Gu Kong class. Even if the Golden Lion is also handsome, this time, don't even think about leaving Marie Joya alive. Have all the 7 martial Cs come? Warring States turned his head and asked. Just yesterday, the latest Empress Hancock arrived. Aokiji replied. They are all staying at the rest station under the Red Earth continent, and they can take the bubble lift to come to Mary Joya for support at any time. Good job. Zhang Guo said. Although they are already on our side, we have to guard against them. The main purpose of letting them come is to prevent other accidents from happening. After all, we have received reliable news that a week ago, the main force of the Whitebeard pirates disappeared under surveillance. And that lunatic Kaido, who has been causing trouble around since half a year ago. You have to be on guard against them. If those 2 4 emperors have come, isn't our strength still not enough? Huang Yuan seemed to shrink back after being injured. After all, those are 2 handsome powerhouses. HMPH. This is Marie Joya, the core area of the world government. Do you think this place has only superficial strength? Gang Gukong seemed very dissatisfied with Huang Yuan's shrinking, and said domineeringly, as long as they dare to mix and come in, I dare to leave them all. Huang Yuan, don't talk nonsense. Zhang Guo said. You don't have to worry, this time Carp was also invited by me. Hearing the words of the Warring States period, Huang Yuan was relieved. If Garp also came, then their apparent strength would reach 3 handsome levels. However, after hearing Garp's name, Akainu's face darkened suddenly, as if he remembered the thing Garp beat him before, and felt a slight pain on his face. On Bika Island, above the original temple, 2 figures continuously stepped out of the moon, standing high above the sky. It was Ace and Enel. At this moment, Anilu has a serious face, while Ace has a smile on his face. It's been half a year, are you ready? Ace said with a hint of excitement in his tone. All right. Very well, let's start. Ace said, use your full strength. Breathe, breath. Anilu took a deep breath, then his eyes suddenly narrowed, and he shouted. 200 million volts Thor. Immediately, his body erupted with thunder, and the blue thunder surged out, and then suddenly shrank, wrapping it all around Anilo's body, thus transforming into a huge thunder god. Before launching an attack, it brings a strong sense of oppression. Ha ha ha, good. Ace's eyes lit up and he laughed out loud. On the eve of the Golden Lion's War, Anilo was finally able to use this strongest move. It's my turn. Ace opened his hands excitedly and shouted, the Great Flame and Vulcan God. As soon as the words fell, Ace's body also gushed out a sea of flames, which instantly surrounded Ace's body, and then a god of flame, which was a circle larger than Anilo's Thor, appeared high above the sky. This is a new move created by Ace based on Anilo's move, which increases his ability to display by several %. Bring it on. The 2 giants, as if transformed into real gods, swung their fists at the same time and collided with each other. Thunder and flames divided the entire sky into 2 halves, and the blue lightning and red flames dyed the sky on both sides into their respective colors. In the eyes of the residents of Bika Island, this doomsday scene is a real miracle. All the residents of Sky Island knelt down tremblingly, praying to the 2 of Ace. Boom. Boom. The battle between Ace and Anilo was still going on, and Willy and Luo were also standing by the temple at this time, watching the battle in the sky. The captain's vision is really good. Enel's strength has improved really fast. This is already able to fight the captain back and forth, Luo said with a smile. Haha, the captain hasn't tried his best yet. Didn't you see that the captain only used one kind of flame? Willy still defended Ace. That's right. My brother is definitely no match for Lord Ace. Behind the 2 of them, there was Trey, who raised her head and looked up in admiration. It's just that her words made the 2 of Willy speechless for a while, and they cursed in their hearts. Are you and Anilu brothers and sisters? You don't mean to help your brother at all, and you speak to the captain without hesitation. Boom boom boom. There was another roar in the sky, and in the end Enel's Thor form broke away first, and fell to the ground next to the temple in some embarrassment. I lost. I let you down, Captain. Enel was a little embarrassed, and his expression looked a little annoyed. Call. The flames around Ace dissipated under his control, and the few traces of electric light left on his body also made him grin, and his skin felt a little numb. Haha, don't underestimate yourself. Ace fell to Anilu's side and said, it's only been half a year, it's not easy for you to reach this level. According to my estimate, With your current strength, although you are not the opponent of those generals, but with the characteristics of thunder and lightning, it is no problem at all to stalemate with them for a while. Okay. I won't say more. It's time for us to go. Ace led the three of Anilu to the edge of Bika Island, looking out in the direction of Marie Joya, with a confident look in his eyes shine. In half a year, not only the strength of the three of Anilo has been greatly improved, but Ace himself has been improved even more. After unremitting and hard training, his physique has reached the 5th rank of the quasi-general level at this time. Once he bursts out the spiritual fire-tempering body art, he will truly gain the strength of the general level. What's more, he is now able to once again fuse into the high-level different fire red-gold burning Tianyan, and by then, slaughtering a general will no longer be a problem. Attack the world government. Witnessing such a grand scene is what pirates should do. As soon as the words fell, Ace let out a hearty laugh, wrapped in flames, burning through Bai High, and jumped directly from the height of 10,000 meters. And after the three of Anilu looked at each other, they didn't hesitate at all. The three of them took Theria with them, and also jumped down the passage opened by Ace. After half a year, the distance of 10,000 meters in the sky can no longer stop the Yandi pirates, whose strength is soaring. Quiet Belt, a hidden archipelago. In the past 6 months, there have been floating ships bringing in one after another of crazy pirates. At this time, there are not only nearly 10,000 aggressive mutant giant beasts on this island, but also tens of thousands of golden lions. Attracted pirates. Gia ha 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 ha. Boys. The golden lion floated high in the center of the archipelago, with its arms wide open, and its blonde hair dancing wildly with the wind. His crazy voice spread into the ears of every pirate. From now on, the governments of the world will tremble at the terror we bring. Kill. 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 Tens of thousands of crazy pirates with red eyes at the same time let out a shocking mad roar, making the golden lion's laughter even more carefree. Kill. With a loud shout, the entire archipelago trembled violently, and the originally calm sea suddenly set off huge waves. Boom boom boom. Intensive loud noises reached everyone's ears, and the archipelago broke through the waves and soared into the sky, heading straight for Marie Joya. Zzz. After a flash of snowflakes, the video phone bugs all over the world were put into operation, projecting the picture of Mary Hoya on the big screen in real time. And Mary Hoya's videophone bug seems to be placed at a certain high point, including the entire barracks in the picture. In front of the barracks, 3 admirals and vice admirals have been lined up in a neat square formation. At a glance, they are all in blue and white navy uniforms. The sea breeze blows from outside the red earth continent, making the cloaks of justice behind them rattle. At the front of the army formation, more than a dozen lieutenant generals of the Navy headquarters lined up, each of them faintly exuded a powerful aura, which brought a great sense of security to the people in front of the screen. Boom. Boom. The sound of huge footsteps came to the ears of the people, and the 7 giant lieutenant generals of the Navy giant troop walked to the front of the army step by step. Guarding among them is the strongest force in the Navy today. Admiral Sengoku. 3 admirals of the Navy, Akainu, Yellow Ape, Aokiji. Lifting his feet and walking to the front of the army formation, there was a sudden buzzing sound from Zhang Guo's body, and then his body glowed with a strong golden light, which instantly swelled and turned into a golden Buddha on the spot. Admiral Sengoku. The voice of the Warring States period was extremely calm, with a strong penetrating power, reaching the depths of every sailor on the scene, and every hit person in front of the screen. I will lead you today to kill the golden lion here. Tell all the evil people who are about to move, only justice will prevail. As soon as the words of the Warring States period fell, the golden light on his body suddenly swept out, covering the entire naval formation. All the sailors suddenly felt a surge of blood and fighting spirit, and they couldn't help roaring from the bottom of their hearts at the same time. Justice shall prevail. Justice will win. Justice wins. 30,000 naval officers and admirals roared in unison, trembling the sea breeze, and the strong fighting spirit and confidence passed through the screen and passed to the hearts of every citizen. The lost trust in the Navy seems to have returned to the people at this moment. The fear brought by the Golden Lion has gradually disappeared from the hearts of the people. With such a powerful army protecting them, what is a Golden Lion? Justice wins. All over the world, countless people seem to be infected by this aura, and they shouted loudly together. They wished they could also rush to Mary Joya to participate in this war to exterminate the Golden Lion. At this moment, the Navy's momentum seems to have returned to its peak. Gia ha 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 ha. Warring States old dog, the position of Admiral of the Navy is really suitable for your ability. At this moment, in the sky above Marie Joya, the wild laughter of the Golden Lion penetrated the space, from top to bottom, and suddenly reached everyone's ears. The originally clear sky gradually turned gloomy the moment the voice appeared, and a huge shadow completely enveloped half of Marie Joya. The video phone bug moved the camera up, and the scene in the sky immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the world. Dozens of huge islands floating in the air brought terror and oppression that made all the people almost suffocate, like a pot of cold water poured on everyone's hearts, extinguishing their excitement just now. What trust? What justice will prevail? It's not worth mentioning under the doomsday scene in front of you. Is this the power of that golden lion? Countless people were stunned by this terrifying sight. Gia ha 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 ha. The golden lion's unscrupulous laughter spread throughout the sea again. His domineering figure floating high and the long golden hair dancing wildly behind him will be forever engraved on everyone who saw this scene. People's hearts. With an abnormal flush on his face, he roared in a crazy voice. Today, I want everyone to know that only I, the Golden Lion, can be called a real pirate. HMPH. Golden Lion, don't talk nonsense anymore. You will die in Marie Joya today. Warring states yelled loudly, dispelling the Golden Lion's power. Red Dog, Yellow Monkey, Green Pheasant and many lieutenant generals of the headquarters gathered here one by one, looking up at the Golden Lion in the sky, ready to fight, full of fighting spirit. In the captain's hall of the Golden Lion, the Entei pirates headed by Ace stood here, looking at the Golden Lion in midair from a distance, and couldn't help but feel a slight shock in their hearts. Ace and others caught up with the Golden Lion a day ago, and they also learned what the Golden Lion has been doing in the past 6 months. Ace knew in his heart that the Golden Lion probably didn't want to subvert the world government at all. He had already embraced the mortal heart this time, just wanting to have a dazzling bloom at the end of his life. Maybe this dazzling light is just for a moment, but it will definitely leave an indelible mark in this world. Captain, do we need help? Willie asked hesitantly. Ace shook his head and said, Golden Lion is right, he is indeed a real pirate. The purpose of his asking us to come may not want us to help at all. He just wants us to become a pirate. Witness the most glorious moment of his life. You're right. Golden Lion's ship Dr. Indigo came over. It seemed that because of Ace's understanding of Golden Lion, he looked at Ace with gratitude. It's better to live for 10 years than to live in ignorance. Years. The captain would rather die in this glorious war. Next. Please don't do anything for now. After Indigo finished speaking, he bowed to Ace, then turned around and walked towards the bow of the ship, ripping off the doctor's white coat, revealing a layer of golden skin inside. First. One after another, pirates who looked old came out of the Golden Lion. They are the old part of the flying pirates who came from all over the world in the past 6 months. At this moment, they were wearing golden armor and holding sharp swords, step by step onto the bow of the Golden Lion. The Golden Lion floating in the sky seemed to feel something at this moment, turned around to look at the thousands of golden armored pirates at the bow, and suddenly let out a hearty laugh. Gia ha 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 ha. My flying pirates are still there, even Roger can't destroy him. You are willing to fight with me again? Thousands of golden armored pirates stepped on the ground at the same time, shaking the entire giant ship. Willing to die for the captain. Kill, kill, kill. Okay. Then today we will kill him and turn the world upside down. Jiha ha ha ha. The Golden Lion opened his arms wide, and his blonde hair danced wildly. After a roar that shook the sky, he swung his arms forward suddenly. Immediately, dozens of huge islands blew up a gust of wind and slammed down on Marie Joya. The Golden Lion didn't intend to make any probing attacks at all, and he was merciless as soon as it came up, killing the entire Marie Joya. At this moment, even the 3 admirals, who have always been strict in military discipline, couldn't help but feel a commotion. What is the concept of dozens of islands falling from the sky? If no one can stop this wave of attacks, these islands alone can directly smash everyone present into a pulp, and completely reduce this Marie Joya, which has stood on the Red Earth continent for 800 years, into ruins. Da da da. At this moment when everyone was terrified, 3 footsteps of different severity sounded, and the Red Dog, Yellow Monkey, and Green Pheasant in red, yellow, and white suits walked to the forefront of the army formation. Before the screen, the people who saw this horrific scene had already fallen into despair. They didn't understand why the Golden Lion had such terrifying abilities. He couldn't even imagine how the 3 admirals who walked out of the crowd in front of them could resist this doomsday attack. Can the Navy still protect their justice? but the next moment, they saw a scene they would never forget. The three generals had no nonsense, looked up at the sky with serious expressions, and immediately launched their strongest attack towards these islands. All of a sudden, crimson magma, golden light beams, and dark blue icicles shot up into the sky at the same time, instantly dyeing the sky in people's eyes with these three colors. Within the line of sight, it is completely covered by these three dazzling colors. Boom! Boom! Terrible roars resounded in the air, and dense magma, light beams, and icicles bombarded the island, falling from the sky from bottom to top, and the air seemed to be shaken into countless ripples. Dozens of islands were torn apart bit by the violent impact, and the shadow covering most of Marie Joya was instantly broken into countless rags. Under the joint attack of the three generals, even the islands that fell from the sky can only be blown into countless rubble. The generals' strength also shocked everyone. Crash! However, the blasted gravel fell down like a torrential rain, which still brought them huge troubles. Not only the three generals, but the rest of the dozen lieutenant generals in the headquarters could only soar into the sky, trying their best to intercept the falling stones like cannonballs. Boom! Ah! There were continuous screams, and there were still gravels that were rushed to intercept and fell into the army formation, causing terrible damage to these naval soldiers. Asshole! A roar came from the center of the army formation, and the commander-in-chief of the entire army, Steelbones Kong, also rose into the sky, trying his best to stop the rainstorm of gravel. He had been staying in the army formation all the time, preparing to launch a surprise attack on the Golden Lion at the critical moment, but the Golden Lion used all its strength as soon as it came up, and beat him too hard to rub his hands. Under such circumstances, he simply can no longer sit idly by and continue to hide. Hey, there was another Sai, and Carp, who was wearing a casual shirt and shorts, also came out. Golden Lion. It's time for your era to end. Immediately, Garp also showed his formidable strength, blasting all the gravel in the sky on his side into powder as soon as he shot. Originally, Garp had already resigned, and this time he was just here to witness the end of the Golden Lion, and he didn't intend to make a move. However, the wailing of his former colleagues around him finally awakened the justice in his heart, and he resolutely made a move to join the battle. Gia ha 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 ha. That's right. Three handsome men. This is the battle I want. The Golden Lion's frenzied voice didn't flinch in the slightest, on the contrary it became even crazier. All the powerhouses in the Navy looked for their prestige, and suddenly their pupils shrank again. There were dozens of islands blocking them just now, and they didn't see the scene above the islands. At this moment, those islands were all smashed to pieces. Immediately, hundreds of floating pirate ships descending rapidly were displayed in front of their eyes. But at this moment, because of the blocking of dozens of islands before, the strong Navy has no time to stop them, and these pirate ships have landed to a low enough height. Kill! 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 Among the hundreds of pirate ships, tens of thousands of pirates roared furiously. They dared to follow the Golden Lion to Marie Joya. They were originally a group of lunatics. Their killing intent is even more crazy. Akainu and other three admirals quickly drew their hands, ready to launch an attack on these pirate ships and completely destroy them before they fall. But at this very moment, nearly 100 of the largest pirate ships at the forefront suddenly exploded spontaneously. Nearly 10,000 mutated beasts, large and small, suddenly rushed down from the fragments of these pirate ships with their red eyes open, and plunged into the Navy's formation. The bloody smell pouring into the nostrils made these beasts go berserk in an instant. Each of them has strength above the school level. What's even more frightening is that they don't know what pain is at all, they only know how to crazily bite everything in front of them. In just a split second, this wave of beasts caused huge damage to the Navy, and in the blink of an eye nearly 1,000 sailors died at the mouth of the beasts. Coupled with the Navy that was killed and injured by the gravel before, more than 5,000 naval soldiers have died here at this moment. And that number keeps growing. You know, the people here are all the elites of the Navy. Golden Lion. This time, Zhang Guo saw his eyes tearing apart, and this kind of casualty made him feel like a knife was twisting his heart. I want you to die. With a roar, warring states soared into the sky, and Garp and Steel Gukong also put down their rescue work at the same time, stepped on the sky, and double-teamed the Golden Lion in the sky from both sides. Gia ha 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 ha. Come here for me. The Golden Lion smashed all the remaining pirates into the Navy's formation, and no longer cared about the battle of the pirates under him. People rushed over. 1 against 3. The Golden Lion will rely on its own strength to fight the final battle with 3 handsome and strong men of the same level. Boom. The Golden Lion also fell into the Navy's formation, and Ace led the Yandi pirates, looking up at the sky in silence. The golden lion in front of him has absolutely no chance of surviving. And the former part of the flying pirates who had just rushed to the navy without hesitation, also couldn't leave this Marie Joya alive. But, it is really dazzling enough. The way they left was really brilliant enough. Let's go. Let's help too. But at this moment, the angry roar of the red dog suddenly came, and then the three colors of red, yellow, and blue suddenly lit up, and the three generals of the headquarters were also ready to besiege the golden lion. Hey, you are not qualified to join this battle. Ace sighed, and immediately led the Yandi pirates behind him soaring into the sky, and stopped the three generals in an instant. Boom. A sudden sonic boom sounded, and everyone in Yandi pirates suddenly appeared, blocking in front of the three generals, making them stop vigilantly. It's you. The voices of the red dog and the yellow monkey sounded almost at the same time. The voices were mixed with surprise, pain, resentment, and various emotions. It was hard to imagine that these emotions would appear on the two generals at the same time. Who? Only Aokiji was a little confused. Why did it feel like both Chiquan and Wang Yuan knew the person in front of them, and they had some deep hatred for him? And many more. Deep hatred. Aokiji glanced at the one leg of the red dog and the one arm of the yellow ape. His eyes widened suddenly, as if thinking of something. He turned his head to look at the person in front of him. You are Fire Fist Ace. The corner of Ace's mouth slanted up, and he glanced at the legs of the red dog and the arm of the yellow monkey, and said with a smile. That's right, I'm Ace. I'm also an old friend of the two around you. Now, can I trouble you to stay aside for a while and not disturb the battle of those few? Ace's eyes were like needles piercing the wounds of the red dog and the yellow monkey, making them feel stinging and ashamed, and their faces became extremely gloomy. But the two did not directly speak back, but looked around first. Don't worry. Your Excellency Hawkeye won't do anything for me for the time being, and Uncle Raleigh didn't come this time either. Seeing the actions of the two, Ace showed a playful smile on his face. It seems that what happened before left a deep shadow on these two generals. Huh. After being told what was on his mind, Chiquan obviously couldn't hold back, and snorted coldly, with a strong killing intent in his tone. If this is the case, then you go to die. Over the past few days, Ace has become Akazu's heart disease, and he was stimulated by Ace just now. Akazu immediately made a move without hesitation, and punched Ace in front of him with one punch. In this blow, Akainu has used all his strength, and he doesn't want to give Ace any chance to survive. Big fire. Boom. As Akainu's fist swung out suddenly, his arm suddenly turned into terrifying magma, forming a huge lava fist, and bombarded Ace head-on. Whether it was the fighters on the battlefield or the people in front of the screen, they were all attracted by the power of this punch. This terrifying heat wave seemed to be transmitted to them through the screen, making them feel hot. No one thought that Ace would be able to block this punch, and his gaze was full of sympathy and contempt for his overreaching. But in the face of Akainu's punch, Ace didn't have the slightest intention of retreating. With a strong self-confidence on his face, he also swung the punch and shouted. Fire punch. Boom. Ace's right arm turned into a monstrous flame, and an equally huge four-color flame fist bombarded Akainu's lava fist without fancy. Boom boom boom. Terrifying roars came from between the two, and countless magma and flames exploded and splashed onto the ground, ablating pitch-black potholes one after another, and there was even a turbulent heat wave, rolling away in all directions. Just the heat wave caused the mouths of pirates and navy in the distance to dry up, and the skin all over their bodies was extremely painful. Quick. Look. It turned out that kid, he was tied with General Sokolsky. The flames and magma dissipated, and the exposed scene shocked everyone. Ace faced Akainu head-on, and after a head-on punch, Ace stood in the air. Under the terrifying airwave, his robe shook with the wind, but his body was not injured at all. In front of the screens of the major kingdoms, countless civilians were even more in an uproar after seeing this scene. How is it possible? That's the Admiral of the Navy. Who was this person who suddenly appeared? Is the fist he swung turned out to be a flame? I saw him on the wanted list. He is Fire Fist Ace with a bounty of 600 million berries. Wow. There was another burst of surprised uproar. 600 million Baileys was simply an astronomical figure in the eyes of most civilians. And in the battlefield, Akainu felt the slightly numb fist, his pupils shrank slightly, and his heart sank suddenly. When he fought Ace for the first time, Akainu could completely crush Ace. In the second fight, Ace used moves that could already hurt him. This is the third time that Akainu and Ace have fought against each other, and Ace has been able to evenly share with him. This growth rate is simply terrifying. At this time, Akainu's killing intent towards Ace suddenly reached another level. Gollum. The magma on Akainu's body began to surge violently. Sakazuki, there is no time to waste with him. Huang Yuan and Aokiji came over, and said in a deep voice, "Let's take action together, and get rid of him quickly. The longer we delay, the more likely accidents will happen." The actions of the three generals fell into the eyes of everyone. Both the Navy and the civilians breathed a sigh of relief. That's right. Our Navy has 3 generals. Even if this Ace has the strength of a general, 1 enemy against 3 can only be a dead end. On the battlefield, facing the 3 Navy generals who were about to attack at the same time, Ace did not panic at all, but raised his eyebrows. "Are you planning to attack me? HMPH. There's no need to talk about one-on-one chivalry with pirates like you." Huang Yuan let out a cold snort and took the lead. His body turned into a beam of golden light and rushed towards Ace in an instant. The speed of the golden light was astonishing, and it contained powerful energy. At this moment, everyone present felt blind. But this time, Ace glanced coldly at Kazuru, and then still stared at Akainu, showing no intention of resisting. Is this kid crazy? How dare he ignore the attack of General Huang Yuan? Someone shouted in surprise. He really couldn't figure out why Ace was so arrogant. But the next moment, his voice stopped abruptly, and his eyes widened. Sizzle sizzle. A piercing electric sound suddenly sounded, and then a dazzling blue thunder flashed to the front of Ace in an instant, blocking the way of the yellow monkey's attack. Boom. The blue light and the golden light collided suddenly, and a 2-color light group suddenly formed, followed by another terrifying explosion, which set off a fiery airwave in the air, and smashed the buildings on the ground that had just suffered a devastation into real ones. Wreckage. Click. 2 figures flew upside down from the center of the explosion. One was the yellow ape, and the other figure dodged to escort Ace. Who are you? Huang Yuan's face was a bit ugly. This person in front of him turned out to be another powerful nature fruit ability user, and before today, there was no information about this person at all. Entei Pirates, Enel. Enel has a strong fighting spirit on his face. Your opponent is me. The complexions of the 3 generals, Aokiji, Yellow Monkey and Akakan, suddenly changed, and their eyes all showed shock. This kind of strong enough to fight against the general is willing to submit to Ace. Down? No. They must not be allowed to leave Mary Joya alive. The 3 generals looked at each other, and they all saw the determination in each other's eyes. 3 on 2. They still have the upper hand. Whoosh, whizzing. No need to make a sound. The 3 generals seemed to have made an appointment, and suddenly shot at Ace at the same time, and the magma, light beam, and ice gun instantly attacked Ace and the others. Let's do it all. Today the Navy will have to lose a few generals. Facing the oncoming attack, Ace yelled, his arms turned into flames, and rushed towards the red dog in the middle. Suddenly, more than a dozen thunder guns appeared around Anilu, and they shot at the light beam of the yellow ape head-on. Ace had told him before that his opponent today is only the yellow ape. Boom. Boom. Thunder and Flash were the fastest, setting off dense explosions first, followed by Anilo and Yellow Ape, who immediately fought together. HMPH. You are at best the strength of an ordinary general. Let's see how you can block the attacks of 2 generals today. There was a cold light in Akainu's eyes. Except for the entangled yellow monkey, he and Aokiji approached Ace at the same time. But at this moment, Ace still completely ignored Aokiji's attack, but with 4 color flames wrapped around his arms, he went straight to attack Akainu. Aokiji was a little surprised. He didn't understand what kind of confidence Ace had, and he dared to ignore the attack of a general like him. But as the general of the headquarters, he is very clear about his position. A pirate with terrifying potential like Ace must completely keep him here. Holding an ice skate in each hand, Aokiji's eyes flashed coldly, and the 2 ice skates slashed directly at Ace's head. But at this moment, a low shout came. Room change. A cyan halo flashed across in an instant, and then a black-clothed figure suddenly appeared in front of Aokiji, holding a blue flaming long knife in each of his hands, and instantly slashed between Aokiji's 2 ice skates superior. Chi chi chi. The sound of ice melting under the high temperature was heard suddenly, and the opponent's long flaming knife cut off the ice knife directly, and slashed towards Aokiji's face. Qingzi's pupils shrank suddenly. The blue flame was obviously not an ordinary flame. He didn't dare to bet on whether his domineering power could block this kind of flame. But this also made Ace rush past him, and directly raised his fist and collided with Akainu. Boom. The battle between Ace and Akainu became intense from the very beginning, but Aokiji couldn't join in. Da. Two footsteps came from behind Aokiji. Besides the black-clothed boy in front of him, another boy with a fluffy spotted cap stood behind Aokiji, surrounded Aokiji in a pincer attack. Who are you? Aokiji narrowed his eyes slightly, his body was covered in cold air, and he was ready to strike again at any time. Yandi Pirates, Luo. Entei Pirates, Vili. The two announced their names one after the other, and Willy threw off his suit jacket and said with a smile. Our captain doesn't want you to interfere with his battle, so your opponent is us. This time, the expression on Aokiji's face was finally replaced by horror. The fight just now let him know that maybe the strength of the two children in front of them alone cannot reach the general level, but through the exquisite cooperation of the two, they are definitely qualified. Fight against the general. Moreover, they are all young. Even the young ones are a bit too much, they only look like teenagers. Such two talented teenagers are actually members of Yandi Pirates? How strong is this Huaquan Ace's personality charm, so that he can take one powerful seedling after another under his command? Although it's a pity, but since you have gone the wrong way, you can't blame me. Click. Click. Aokiji's face was full of regret, but the cold air swept across his side, and countless ice spears and ice knives formed in an instant, shooting towards Willy and Luo suddenly. The faces of Willy and the two also became serious, and they tried their best to start fighting with Aokiji. For a while, although they were obviously at a disadvantage, it was considered to be a drag on Aokiji's footsteps, making him unable to fight Akakenu. Let's attack Ace together. This scene on the battlefield not only fell into the eyes of everyone on the scene, but was also recorded by the video phone bug. All of a sudden, people all over the world saw this shocking scene. The three powerful generals of the Navy headquarters with the highest combat power were completely intercepted by the Yandi Pirates, who were originally not well known. How powerful this is! How incredible! Cheat! You're lying. In the battlefield, a rear admiral forgot to wave the katana in his hand, and stared blankly at the battlefield between Yandi Pirates and the three generals. Flame, Thunder and Lightning, two nature-type abilities. They are still the strongest type in the nature type. And those two boys who stopped General Aokiji, one of them can't be the legendary ultimate fruit, the fruit of surgery, right? Just when he was in a daze, suddenly a pirate rushed over from behind him with a grin, and was about to stab the major general's back with a sharp sword. By the time he reacted, it was too late to dodge, and the expression on his face suddenly became desperate. Puff. The sound of a sharp knife piercing into flesh and blood was heard, and the next moment, the major general realized that he was not dead. Why are you in a daze? It was Lieutenant General Hu Shaoshan who spoke. His original smile had disappeared. He pulled out the long sword that pierced into the pirate's body, and reprimanded with a trace of seriousness. This is a battlefield. We'll die. Yes. Lieutenant General. The Major General wiped the cold sweat off his head. If it wasn't for Lieutenant General Hu Shaoshan, he would have died just now. Okay. I'll give you a task now. Hu Shaoshan looked at the center of the battlefield with a trace of worry. In the sky, the Golden Lion was so excited for some reason. Downwind. If things go on like this, if there is another accident, the current high-end power of the Navy will not be enough to end. You immediately go to the elevator station under the Red Earth continent, and notify the 6 Shichibukai to come to support immediately. The high-end combat power Hu Shaoshan can think of is only those Kiwahei now. At this time, Sangoku and Kizaru, who had participated in the Kiwahei appointment ceremony, were in battle. If any of them stood here, they would not agree to the stupid decision of burning the mountain. You know, judging from the performance of the remaining 6 Shichibukai at the ceremony, they are more willing to help Ace than the Navy. Yes. The Major General saluted Hu Shaoshan, and immediately led the order to run towards the elevator on the edge of the Red Earth continent. At this moment, in the battlefield of Marie Joya, the Navy pirates and countless mutated beasts have been completely slaughtered, and everyone has become red-eyed, and has no intention of caring about the battlefield of those strong men. As long as one is distracted, maybe they will lose their lives. Hu Shaoshan killed several pirates casually, looked around the entire battlefield, and found that the giant army could not give full play to its advantages in this chaotic battlefield, and could only fight with hands tied. Giant troop, go help General Aokiji. Hu Shaoshan let out a loud roar, and at that moment, he had already seen that although the Yandi pirates intercepted all 3 generals, in fact, except for that Fire Fist Ace, the other 2 were at a disadvantage. But the one named Anilo is also a natural fruit ability user. Even if the giants go to help, they can't get in, but if they go to join forces with Admiral Aokiji, It will definitely become the last straw that crushes the Entei pirates. Like dominoes, Ace and the others will be completely destroyed in the end. Okay. Let's go now. The giant's thick voice came, and they immediately rushed towards Ace. After Hu Shaoshan took a look, he went to kill the pirates on the battlefield. Although the lieutenant generals of their headquarters are also qualified to intervene in the Battle of the Generals, it is obvious that doing their best to kill the pirates and reduce the casualties of the navy is the most cost-effective choice. Boom. 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 In addition to the Battle of the Golden Lion, the confrontation between Ace and Akainu was the most intense. The two fought to the flesh, flames and magma scattered, and the terrifying roar resounded throughout Marijoya. The dog bites the red lotus. Akainu swung a punch violently, and the magma ejected from the fist turned into a huge vicious dog, opened its bloody mouth, and devoured fiercely towards Ace. Ace was also not to be outdone, and the flame he swung turned into a firebird, collided with the vicious dog, and the violent explosion blasted the two of them apart, temporarily separating them. At this time, Akainu also saw the giant troops coming to this side for support, with a sneer on his face, and mocked. Ace kid, I admit that you are really talented. Even I can't take you down for the time being. But when the reinforcements come, how long do you think your crew can last? I advise you not to struggle anymore, to surrender as soon as possible. Then I might leave you with a whole body. Huh. There was a sneer of disdain on Ace's face. I said, do you villains like to talk nonsense like this? Also, I would like to leave you a whole body, but it seems that there is no chance now. Ace's words made Akainu's face darken suddenly, and he suddenly felt the pain from the wound on his broken leg again. The disdain in Ace's tone pierced Akainu's heart like steel needles. As an admiral, when had he ever been insulted like this? The most aggrieved thing is that he found that he couldn't speak to Ace at all. Every time they taunted each other, it was always him who suffered in the end. Damn. Wait for a while, when the giant army arrives and kills Ace's crew, when he faces the three generals alone, see if he can still laugh. Do you want to wait for those giants to come over and join hands to kill my crew? Ace moved his arms, still with a smile on his face. Got it right again. HMPH. So what? Akakin's face was ugly, but he still said confidently, even if you know, you still have to wait to die. Huh, hateful. Ah. Chiquan's face was livid, his thigh hurts when he hears this word now. Reinforcements. You're not the only ones. Ace didn't look back, but shouted with a smile, Rom, they're already here, pick them up. Luo, who was in the battle, heard Ace's words, and temporarily left the battle with a dodge, and then raised his right hand, and the cyan halo was instantly spread to the edge of the Red Earth continent. Room change. In the next second, 6 huge figures appeared above the battlefield out of thin air. Boom. With a loud noise, the 6 giants crashed down, shaking the entire battlefield. Gahahaha, Dongli. This feeling is really interesting. The 2 leaders were the blue ghost Dongli and the red ghost Brokey, and on their shoulders stood Ian and Brook respectively. Ha ha ha. Yes, Brokey, and it looks like there is still a fight here. Dongli waved the giant sword in his hand, and looked at the giant navy army in front of him with some excitement. Elbaf's giants are all battle madmen. When they saw the battlefield in front of them, they suddenly felt the blood in their hearts blazing. Gahahaha. Yes. Then what are you waiting for? Under the Yandi pirates, the giant soldiers' pirates attack. Dongli and Brokey roared in unison, and immediately rushed towards the navy giants with the 4 members behind them. Boom. Boom. The 2 sides collided in an instant, and the battle of a dozen giants suddenly opened up a large battlefield alone, and any people and beasts who approached were blown away by the aftermath of the battle. Although the number of giant soldier pirates is a little smaller, the 2 leaders, Dongli and Brokey, both fought against each other with one enemy, and instead suppressed the giant army of the navy. Whoosh. Whoosh. But Ian and Brook stepped forward and joined Willie and Luo in the battle against Aokiji. Their strength has also improved greatly in the past 6 months, and every sword that Brook stabs has a thorough the chill of the soul, while Ian holds 2 swords, and has won the true swordsmanship of the Golden Lion. All of a sudden, under the joint efforts of the 4 of them, Qingxi was no longer at a disadvantage. Ha 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 ha. Ace burst into laughter. After coming down from the empty island, Ace had just contacted the Golden Lion, so he directly asked Ian to summon Brook and others. And they finally caught up with this battle at a critical moment. The sudden appearance of the giant soldiers' pirates once again shocked the whole world. When Dongli and the others yelled out of Yandi pirates, no one could say a complete sentence. Giant. The Yandi pirates actually have giants. Okay, Red Dog. It seems that no one will disturb our battle anymore. The smile on Ace's face slowly subsided, and the flames in his palm surged out, instantly forming the appearance of a flaming sword. It is the Devil Demon, who has been promoted to the Supreme Big Knife. Call. The four-color flame continued to spread, and suddenly rose from under Ace's body, completely enveloping his body. After a while, a four-color flame god with a height of nearly 100 meters appeared on the battlefield. Esther pointed at Devil Demon, which had also become huge, and looked at Akainu with a pair of eyes gushing with flames. It's almost time to send you to hell. Kai. With a wave of Ace's Vulcan body, a deep gully was opened on the hard red Earth continent. In the 100-meter-long gully, flames burned blazingly. Want to kill me? When Akazuki heard Ace's words, his face immediately became extremely gloomy, and he laughed angrily, and said, "Do you think you can fight me twice, and you are really invincible? Even if there is no support, the old man will take it. Took your life. Is it?" Ace looked down at Akainu, said lightly, and held Slayer with one hand, and waved lightly at Akainu in front of him. Boom. The red volcanic stone flame and the golden Juyu Jinzuhua were simultaneously waved by Ace, and they merged in the air instantly, forming a red-golden flame, which swept directly towards Akainu, and the monstrous fire set off a terrifying heatwave. Raided the entire battlefield. Both sides in the battle suddenly felt that the moisture in the surrounding air suddenly disappeared, their mouths became parched, and their bodies felt a slight tingling sensation, as if their skin would dry out in the next second. So hot. What kind of flame is that? Even though it's so far away, I suddenly feel very thirsty. Not only ordinary Marines and pirates, but even the powerhouses above the headquarters lieutenant generals all had horrified expressions on their faces, and couldn't help shouting out. If this flame falls on me, I can't stop it at all. General Sakaski should be able to. At this moment, the speaker was not very confident, so he could only look over nervously. The red-golden flames rushed towards Akakan almost instantly, the blue veins on Akakan's forehead were exposed, and Ace's disdain aroused the anger in his heart, and suddenly he yelled, half of his body turned into gurgling magma, he punched Ace violently. Under this punch, the ground around him also turned into magma, which spewed out like a volcano, setting off a tsunami of magma, which seemed to cover the entire sky, and suddenly pressed towards the red-golden flame. When the magma covers the flame, it can be extinguished. This is nature's top and bottom. There was a hint of madness on Akainu's face. He knew that Ace's flame was special, but he didn't believe that this flame could violate the laws of nature. But the next moment, everyone who followed this battlefield was shocked to see that the flame that should have been extinguished seemed not to be blocked at all. When it touched the magma tsunami, the terrifying high temperature actually burned the magma directly. Stand up. Boom. With terrifying power, the red-golden flame broke through the barrier of the magma, and slashed at Akainu, but he never thought that the flame could directly burn the magma, and he couldn't dodge it at all, and was directly cut by half of his body by the flame, was lifted up under the huge impact force. Akainu frantically activated the elementalization of his body, desperately covering his body with the domineering, armed color, but the red-golden flame still ignited his body. This flame is so terrifying. Boom. The red dog slammed into the ground, smashing out a huge deep pit, which turned into a pool of magma and splashed out with a puff. Goo. The magma wriggled in the deep pit for a long time before recondensing the body of Akainu, but the suit on his upper body was completely burned, and shocking scars were burned on his body. Seeing this scene, even Aokiji and Kazaru stopped their fight and looked over with vigilance. Akainu's elementalization couldn't hold this kind of flame, which meant that they couldn't hold it either. This is impossible. Akainu looked at Ace in horror, his face full of disbelief. He didn't understand why Ace's flame could violate the laws of nature. When could the flame ignite magma? The flame that Ace swung just now, if Akainu hadn't reacted quickly and immediately used his strongest defense, maybe he had turned into ashes just now. Is it weird? Ace in the form of Vulcan carried Zumo on his shoulders, with a playful smile on his face, and returned the words of Akainu to him. Sorry, my Chijin Fen Tianyan, and your broken magma, happen to have a relationship between the top and the bottom. Ace's words made Akainu's expression suddenly extremely ugly, and the irony in these words tore up Akainu's dignity. Akainu's eyes were blood red, and he could no longer keep calm. With a roar, the hard red soil continent was quickly assimilated into billowing magma with his feet as the center. The waves formed by the magma surged wildly towards the surroundings, and there were even pillars of magma fire gushing out. Whether it was Navy pirates or those mutant beasts, as long as they couldn't dodge in time, they would all be swallowed by the magma directly. This time, even the green pheasant and yellow monkey roared in horror. Sakaski, are you crazy? This is Marie Joya. In the original book, the all-out battle between Akakenu and Aokiji permanently changed the climate of the entire island of Punk Hazard. Obviously, if Akakenu uses his magma fruit ability with all his strength, at least half of Marie Joya will be forever transformed into lava sea of fire. With twisted madness in Akainu's eyes, he laughed and roared. As long as I can kill this hateful pirate in front of me. These are just some small sacrifices. For the sake of absolute justice, what is this sacrifice? The screams of the Navy soldiers reached Akainu's ears, but they couldn't shake his determination at all. The terrifying magma tide kept sweeping towards Ace. Idiot. Sakaski, you bastard. These two roars came from the high-altitude Steel Bone Kong and Sengoku. This war was broadcast live to the whole world. Akainu's paranoid view of justice will not make ordinary people have the slightest favor for the Navy. Whoosh. The three of Sengoku were about to rush down to stop the Red Dog, but the roar of the Golden Lion immediately came from beside them. Gia ha 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 ha. Don't even think about leaving, Lion Thousand Cut Valley. Dozens of terrifying golden sword chi slashed at the three of the warring states, making them turn around and resist aggrievedly. Boom boom boom. After finally smashing the sword energy, the bloody Golden Lion frantically entangled him again, leaving them no chance to go down and stop the Red Dog. The three people of the warring states period also figured it out. The Golden Lion definitely took a drug that burns vitality, and exploded several times his original strength. This lunatic just wants to burn himself out brilliantly in this final battle. Humph. On the battlefield on the ground, Ace didn't expect Akainu to be so crazy, but he was also fearless. The huge Vulcan's body suddenly shrank, and the flames became more condensed. Cut a road straight to Akainu. Immediately afterwards, Ace tapped his right foot lightly, leaving behind a flame, and suddenly disappeared in place, and suddenly appeared behind the maddened Akainu in the next second. Slaying demons. Slashed down and slashed straight at Akainu's head, but Akainu's reaction was not slow. A wall made of magma suddenly rose up, and instantly solidified into hard lava, blocking Ace's Zumo magic. But at this moment, a small orange snake suddenly appeared on Ace's shoulder. The snake's pupils shrank, and it vomited a snake letter towards the Red Dog. Chaquan's emotions at this moment were already crazy, but under the sudden attack of the falling heart flame, he was directly aroused, and his body seemed to be temporarily out of his control. Boom. Murderous intent flashed in Ace's eyes, and he seized the opportunity instantly. He immediately let go of the lava-wrapped slayer, clenched his right hand into a fist, and the flames surged out. With all his strength, he suddenly blasted towards Akainu's body. Chest. On target. Puff, with a muffled sound, Ace's fist pierced Akainu's chest, and the flames burned in the wound, turning Akainu's chest into magma, surging crazily. Kai. Ace pulled out his fist violently, leaving a terrifying cavity with transparent back and forth on Akainu's chest. The magma wriggled desperately, trying to close inwards, trying to restore the cavity, but it could only splash away in vain. The sea of magma and flames that had been expanding wildly on the battlefield stopped abruptly at this moment. At this moment, the entire battlefield suddenly fell silent. Countless sailors watched this scene in disbelief, their faces filled with astonishment and shock, and some sailors didn't realize that their weapons fell to the ground. Admiral Sokolsky. Dot was hit. Countless sailors yelled out in horror. They would never believe that the powerful general of the Navy would be punched in the chest without seeing it with their own eyes. What are you still doing in a daze? Mr. Sakaski is a natural fruit ability user. This little injury is nothing. Hu Shaoshan, who was also shocked, was the first to recover, and shouted, "Stop that fire fist, Ace." The sound of the burning mountain awakened many sailors, and someone immediately raised the gun in his hand and pointed it at Ace in the center of the battlefield. Fire. With an order, countless bullets, plus dozens of shells bombarded Ace's body in an instant. Puff puff. The shells shot Ace's body into flames, but he regained his composure the next moment. Ace glanced at them indifferently, and then looked back at Akainu in front of him. How could these ordinary shells and bullets hurt him? Seeing that Akainu had regained control of his body, clutching the horrible wound on his chest, Akainu turned around with difficulty, and with a puff, he couldn't help spitting out a mouthful of blood. Wow. As if a breeze was blowing away, facing the General Akainu who was close at hand, Ace took the initiative to release the Vulcan form on his body. Bass. Pulled out the devil demon, inserted into the lava, and put it directly on the neck of the red dog, and the corner of the mouth cracked an arc. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Red dog." Seeing this scene, the faces of the Marines suddenly changed drastically. Fire Fist is also a natural type ability user. Ordinary physical attacks are useless, and he will follow me domineeringly. Hu Shaoshan also knew that the situation was urgent at this moment, and he didn't have the heart to clean up those ordinary pirates. With a loud roar, he immediately rushed towards Ace with a few lieutenant generals from the Navy headquarters. At this moment, his heart was full of remorse. He always believed that in the battle, the three generals had the upper hand. Unexpectedly, after a while, General Sakaski was cornered by Ace. But it was just Zhu Mo. Placed on the neck of the red dog, such a simple action made his legs tremble violently, and then he plopped, his knees touched the ground, and he knelt down in front of Ace. A huge sense of shame surged into Chiquan's heart, but the severe pain in his chest took away all the strength in his body. He could only tremble and struggle violently, but he couldn't break free from the huge force from Magic Killer. Shave. The roars of several lieutenant generals suddenly turned around, and in the next second, 3 lieutenant generals from the headquarters suddenly appeared beside Ace, slashing at Ace without hesitation with super-armed and domineering weapons. "Come over." Clang. 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 Ace's arm was raised, and it became dark because of the domineering entanglement, but to Ace's surprise, the strength of these lieutenant generals is not weak, especially Hu Shaoshan, who is the leader, has a quasi-general strength. Da. Riding on Ace being temporarily forced back, Hu Shaoshan and the others immediately rushed to Akainu's body. "Lord Sakaski, hold on for a while, the military doctor has been notified." Huo Shaoshan stared nervously at Ace, fearing that he would make a sudden move. But Ace glanced at his mouth, and instead put away, "Devil Demon," with disdain on his face. "Treatment? Don't you know that the red dog is hopeless?" With horror on their faces, Hu Shaoshan and the others turned to look at Akainu, only to see that the surge in Akainu's chest was no longer magma, and the blood was gushing out, and Akainu's face was already pale. The military doctor also arrived at this time, and after an examination, his hands trembled and he said, "No. It's useless. My lord's internal organs are all burnt." Call. Almost the moment after the military doctor finished speaking, the red dog kneeling on the ground finally couldn't help letting out a scream, and his whole body was suddenly engulfed in flames, and instantly turned into a cloud of fly ash and scattered away. A generation of generals, before he died, failed to say a single last word, and turned into ashes in such a grievance. The flames were raging, with blazing heat. Several lieutenant generals hurriedly dispersed, fearing that the flames would touch themselves. Gudong. In front of the screens all over the world, it is unknown who swallowed a mouthful of saliva first, and immediately there was an uproar of mountains and tsunami. General Akainu, dead. A mournful cry sounded from the crowd, and countless people felt that a pillar in their chests had collapsed just like that. The powerful admiral just died in front of the eyes of the people all over the world. And on the battlefield, Ace, who finally got his revenge, feels that his spirit has been sublimated. In this life, Ace worked hard and practiced desperately, and finally completely changed the fate of himself and the people around him in this second. From then on, Luffy no longer has to experience the pain of losing himself. The White-Beard father will no longer die because of himself. Ace has also proved himself that he has enough power to protect what he loves. Whoa. Ace turned his head abruptly, and glanced over Aokiji and Yellow Monkey. Although Ace didn't speak, the 2 generals of the headquarters suddenly felt a chill in their bodies. Akainu is dead. Who is next? In the sky above the battlefield at this moment, Sengoku and Sora's faces were extremely ugly. They never thought that Akainu would be killed in this live broadcast to the whole world. This time, the face of the world government and the navy is completely lost. Bastard. Gang Gukong roared angrily, and was about to rush down desperately, punching Ace to death. Gia ha 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 ha, I didn't expect little brother Ace to be so powerful, then I can't let you go. After fighting for such a long time, the Golden Lion's clothes were already stained with blood. After a burst of maniacal laughter, it slammed 2 swords towards the steel bone. And Gang Gukong seemed to hate Ace so much, he mobilized his domineering energy to his back, forcibly held the 2 swords of the Golden Lion, and rushed down to kill Ace even with a trace of blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. But Carp suddenly appeared in front of Steel Ji Kong, and punched Steel Ji Kong without hesitation. Boom. There was an earth-shattering bang. Steel Ji Kong responded hastily, suffered a big loss, and was immediately blasted back to the battlefield in the sky. Carp. What do you want to do? Steel Gukong stabilized his figure in a bit of embarrassment, with surprise and anger on his face. He yelled at Garp. HMPH. Garp shook his fist, squinted his eyes and said, I don't want to do anything. I just want to protect my grandson. Grandson? You mean that fire fist? Steel Gukong had an unbelievable expression on his face, but he continued. Even if he is your grandson, but don't forget your identity. My identity? I've resigned a long time ago. I only have the identity of grandfather now, Garp said with dangerous eyes. If it wasn't for the persecution of you trash executives, my grandson would still be serving in the Navy now. Finally, Cyborg, you listen up. Let me emphasize again, this time I am here to help you deal with that old lion. I don't care what you do in the future, but if you still want to bully my grandson in front of me today, then don't blame me for not remembering the past. Garp's words made Gang Gakong's face even more livid. Garp had been silent just now, and he never thought that Garp and that Fire Fist Ace had such a relationship. Moreover, Garp's sudden resignation had already made him a little strange, but now hearing the meaning of Garp's words, there is actually a layer of hidden secrets? Bastard. Those high-level officials even concealed me, the commander-in-chief of the entire army. Gang Gakong's heart was already extremely angry, but under this situation, he could only suppress his killing intent on Ace, and retargeted the Golden Lion. Garp saw Sora's movement, and then rushed towards the Golden Lion again. In the next second, the battle will start again. This time the battle was obviously more intense. The four top handsome powerhouses, perhaps because of the stimulation of Akainu's death, finally tried their best at this moment and fought even crazier. The collision of several people caused endless storms, and from time to time they would blow out several pitch-black ravines on the ground. Before the Titan city where the Tianlong people were located, it had already been beaten into a mess. The blonde hair danced wildly behind the Golden Lion, looking up to the sky and roaring madly, as if he had turned into a real violent male lion. A trace of blood mist shrouded him. It seemed that he was already at the end of his strength, but he erupted with even more terrifying power. Lion Mighty Land Scroll. With his hands wide open, the storm rolled up violently, lifting countless stones on the ground, and instantly formed dozens of huge lions composed of wind and stones, rushing towards Kong, Sengoku and Kapu-san with the power to destroy everything. People. Anyone can see that the Golden Lion has been fighting with the belief that he must die, which is why he has been able to persist until now with one enemy and three, but it is obvious that this state can no longer persist for much longer. On the ground, the Entei pirates have temporarily left the battle. In addition to Ace killing the Red Dog, Dongli and Brokey also each killed a giant lieutenant general of the Navy Giant Army. Ace stood at the front of the Yandi pirates, looking up at the battlefield in the sky, as if he was completely unprepared, but at this moment, including Aokiji and Kizaru, no one dared to come to provoke the Yandi pirates group. People all over the world looked at Ace and the others with awe and fear in their eyes. The first appearance of Yandi pirates completely shocked the whole world. No one doubted that when they headed to the New World, it was also the day when the fifth emperor was born. Crunch, crunch. But at this moment, the huge gate of Tianlongren Titan City, which had been silent for a long time, was suddenly pushed open. A mighty roar suddenly came from inside the door. Your navy is really trash. The face of the world government has been completely lost by you. As soon as the words fell, the footsteps of a large number of troops marched loudly, and countless soldiers in brown military uniforms ran out of the city gate with neat steps. These soldiers are physically strong, and each of them has a strong power. At first glance, they are military elites who have experienced many battles. As soon as they ran out of the city gate, they organized a neat formation and charged towards the chaotic battlefield. In just a passing moment, a large number of pirates and mutant beasts were slaughtered, and the killing efficiency was even higher. Above those admirals. Ace frowned, and looked at the army that appeared suddenly. Apart from the brown-clothed soldiers who had rushed into the battlefield, 4 generals wearing justice cloaks stood firmly in front of the city gate. And that sentence just now was the voice of the leader. Marshal. General. Ace saw the military ranks on the shoulders of these 4 people, and his pupils shrank suddenly. These 4 people turned out to be a marshal, plus 3 generals. Coulson. This is our navy's business, you don't need your army to intervene. Warring states in the midst of the battle, seeing these 4 people on the ground, their expressions suddenly changed. The navy and the army have always been in a competitive relationship. HMPH. I have been ordered by the 5 elders this time. Coulson is obviously the leader of the field marshal. He has orange hair and his temples are slightly white, and said, The higher-ups are already very dissatisfied with you. This time, I am here to help you wipe your ass. After finishing speaking, Coulson no longer cared about Sengoku's reaction, and turned his head to fix his eyes on Ace. Fire Fist Ace? You killed the Navy's Admiral Akainu? Coulson raised his eyebrows. Although I have always had trouble with the trash of the Navy, you were unlucky. You don't want to leave alive today. Mary Joya. Coulson's energy was locked on Ace's body, which immediately made him feel a threat to his life, and now that Ace can feel this way, it shows that the other party is definitely a real handsome and strong man. Then the strength of the three generals behind the opponent is self-evident. The background of the world government is so terrifying. Even if Garp is excluded, the fighting strength of the world government side at the scene must have at least 3 commander-level powerhouses, plus 5 general-level powerhouses. Go and join hands with Aokiji and Yellow Monkey. Let me wipe out all those Yandi pirates. Give me that Fire Fist Ace. Coulson's tone was very casual, as if the Entei pirates were all wiped out, just a few bedbugs were crushed to death. Yes. After the 3 army generals took the order, they stepped on their feet and disappeared in the same place in an instant. And Coulson threw off the cloak without hesitation, and rushed towards Ace suddenly. Coulson was obviously the last to act, but he overtook the 3 generals in an instant, covering a distance of hundreds of meters in an instant. Captain, be careful. Anil suddenly turned into a thunderbolt and rushed to Ace, trying to stop Coulson for Ace. HMPH. I don't know what to say. Coulson suddenly appeared in front of Anilo, without giving him any time to react. He punched Anilo on the right side of his body. Boom. Accompanied by the blue thunder and lightning scattered in all directions, after a loud bang, Anilu was directly thrown out by the punch. The elementalization of natural fruits had no effect at all. The sound of bones breaking came from inside Anilo's body. He flew out all the way, and his body plowed a ravine nearly 50 meters long on the red soil continent. Only then did he spit out a mouthful. The blood fainted. This scene fell into Ace's eyes, and he couldn't help but change his face. Enel, who was able to fight against the Yellow Monkey, couldn't even take a move in front of this Coulson. Luo, take Anilo with you. Withdraw quickly, Ace yelled. The current Yandi pirates can indeed deal with 3 generals, but the current opponent is 5 generals plus a terrifying marshal. Once they are entangled by each other, neither of them can leave. I can't handle that much anymore. Looking at Coulson, who was close at hand and punching him violently, a flash of determination flashed across Ace's face. The red volcanic stone flame merged with the golden Juyu Jinzuhuo instantly, entwining around Ace's head, hovering, forming a crimson-golden crown. Ace's aura rose instantly, and a sense of power at the handsome level surged in his body. Swish. The Cyan Qinglian Heartfire suddenly formed a flame shield in front of Ace, which would block Coulson's punch. Boom. Terrifying airwaves surged out, blowing away all the gravel and soil around them. Even the rest of Yandi pirates couldn't bear the impact, and retreated in embarrassment. Ping. With a crisp sound, the fire shield in front of Ace finally shattered, but Coulson's attack was completely blocked by Ace. Coulson's eyes froze. He never thought that his attack would be blocked. In his opinion, even if the kid in front of him was a general, he wouldn't be able to feel better if he didn't vomit a few mouthfuls of blood if he was punched head-on by him. But what's going on here? His fist was blocked so easily. Call. Once wearing the red gold crown, Ace's eyes became indifferent, as if he had become a king of fire who controlled all fires. But this time, the red golden flames flowed down, forming a radiant flame emperor robe on Ace's body, falling heart flame. Whoosh. Whizzing. At this moment, the 3 army generals passed by Ace's side at high speed, and were about to rush towards Willy and the others. Boom boom boom. Ace's expression was indifferent, and with a light wave of his hands, a fiery wall of flames formed on both sides of his body out of thin air, engulfing the 3 generals in an instant. Whoosh. Whizzing. Immediately, the 3 army generals retreated at a faster speed, desperately forcing back the flames wrapped around them with domineering aura. Call. With his hands behind his back, Ace slowly lifted into the air. Even his hair was burning with flames, which seemed to grow instantly and spread to his waist. Willy, you go first. This is the captain's order. There was a trace of unquestionable in Ace's voice, coupled with the imperial power on him at the moment. It was even more domineering. At this time, Luo had already brought back the fainted Anilo, and wanted to say something after hearing Ace's order, but was stopped by Willy. Let's go. The captain's order must be obeyed. Willy's forehead was exposed, and he was obviously unwilling. Among us, the strongest Enela has been defeated. Even if we all join forces, we can only help the captain block the general. As long as the other party sends 3 generals to deal with us, then the captain will be distracted to protect us. So even for the captain, we must go first. After hearing Willy's words, the rest of Yandi pirates fell silent. They knew that Willy was right, and they could only drag the captain back if they stayed. To become stronger. This feeling of powerlessness and aggrievedness made everyone frantically want to become stronger at this moment. Go. Willy yelled, gritted his teeth first and turned his head away. He knew that only if they left first would Ace have a better chance of leaving the battlefield. HMPH. Want to leave? Huang Yuan snorted coldly, his eyes flashed coldly, his body suddenly turned into a golden light, and he wanted to go to intercept the Yandi pirates. Did I make you move? There was cold killing intent in Ace's voice. His body stood still, and he only glanced at the yellow ape from a distance, and suddenly a green and orange fire lotus appeared in front of the yellow ape out of thin air. It exploded in the next second, and the two-color sea of flames instantly engulfed the yellow ape, and then screams rang out from the sea of flames. After being amplified by the Chijin Fentianyan, the two-color strange fires have all been promoted to the middle-level strange fires, and the power of this Buddha's Wrath Fire Lotus has naturally increased by more than 10 times. So even if it was just a two-color fire lotus, it instantly burned the yellow ape screaming, and burned all the hair he had grown so hard to. Da da da. Yellow monkey retreated from the sea of flames in embarrassment. His body was covered with burns, and he looked at Ace in horror, not daring to act rashly anymore, watching the Yandi pirates retreat towards the edge of the Red Earth continent. Field Marshal Coulson watched Ace vigilantly. Now Ace's aura is truly handsome, and even he can no longer deal with it casually. And the 3 army generals, together with Aokiji and Kizaru, felt the dangerous aura on Ace, and they didn't care about the rest of Yandi pirates, but surrounded Ace. In an instant, a 6-to-1 situation was formed. 5 generals plus a marshal, just to deal with Ace alone. I didn't want to use this trick at first. There was a chill in Ace's voice, but every time he uttered a word, the surrounding flames would slowly tremble with his tone, adding a little more power to him. After half a year of training, Ace has been able to fuse the Chijin Fentianyan outside the body to attack, but if the full version of the Chijin Fentianyan is used, it will still cause huge damage to Ace's body. And now Ace's magic points are not enough for him to exchange for another life-returning pill. Therefore, Ace only has 10 minutes. Once the use limit of the Chijin Fentianyan is exceeded, no matter what the result is, Ace will be seriously injured instantly under the backlash. But now, even in the face of the siege of the 6 powerhouses in front of him, Ace has invincible self-confidence. You go together. HMPH. Arrogance. Coulson's forehead was bulging with blue veins, and the killing intent emanating from his body became stronger. Don't even think about leaving today. As soon as the words fell, Coulson rushed to Ace first. He was still in the air, and his body expanded rapidly. In an instant, he turned into a giant tiger with a whole body white and black stripes. Animal Devil Fruit ability. Ace frowned slightly. He always felt that it would not be so simple. Sure enough, in the next second, with the tiger claws swung by Coulson, a nearly 10-meter-long cyan windblade suddenly cut towards Ace. Call. The flames around Ace swept away, but the air around him suddenly burst into a gust of wind, blowing a path through his flames, allowing Coulson's attack to be unimpeded. The opponent can actually control the wind. Ace's eyes froze suddenly, as if he had thought of something, but Coulson's attack also reached him at this moment. Humph. Although Coulson turned into a white tiger with astonishing aura, Ace didn't retreat in the slightest. His right hand was clenched upside down into a fist, and the domineering arrogance of the armed force lingered on it. First, he shattered the windblade in front of him with his fist, and then he had a head-on confrontation with Coulson without fancy. Boom. With a loud noise, Ace's fist was covered with flames, but on the opposite side of Coulson's tiger claws, there were also densely packed small wind knives. After punching each other, the two took a few steps back at the same time, and in the middle of them, the air vibrated wildly. White tiger. Ace felt the tingling fist. His eyes narrowed slightly. The cutting power of those wind knives was so amazing that Ace felt like he couldn't prevent it. The cloud follows the dragon and the wind follows the tiger. The devil fruit of Coulson in front of him must not be an ordinary animal. Phantom beast of the animal type, cat fruit, white tiger form. The white tiger fur on Coulson's right paw was now slightly blackened by the flames. The confrontation just now finally made Coulson admit that Ace is qualified to be his opponent. If there is a chance, I really want to have a one-on-one contest with you, Coulson said with a trace of regret. However, this is a battlefield. It's not fair, and you must die too. Having said that, Coulson roared fiercely, "Go together." The gust of wind blew up out of thin air, and Coulson's body was swept towards Ace, and behind him, the bodies of the 3 army generals also swelled instantly, and they were all strong ancient animal species. Savage dragon, shark-toothed dragon, and even a pterosaur soaring into the sky. They are all ferocious carnivorous dinosaurs, coupled with their general level physical strength. Their speed and strength have reached the limit of general level at this moment. Perhaps their group damage ability is not as good as those admirals, but as an army, their individual combat effectiveness is definitely better than Huang Yuan and others. And the yellow monkey and the green pheasant didn't hold back, and suddenly shot countless beams of light and ice spears at Ace. Bring it on. Ace's brows were upside down, and he pulled out Devil Demon from the air and suddenly slashed at Coulson. Stacking flames cut 600 layers. This is the strongest attack that Ace can unleash. Facing the siege of 6 people, Ace did not have the slightest thought of holding back. The dazzling flame knife temporarily took away the vision of everyone on the scene, and instantly struck Cole, in front of Sen. Coulson didn't expect Ace's slash to be so powerful, so he could only meet it with 2 tiger claws hastily. Boom. The flaming saber air exploded, completely covering Coulson's figure. However, Ace didn't care about the result of the knife at all. He smashed the attacks of the yellow monkey and the green pheasant with a few knife, and then he carried the killing demon upside down and rushed directly towards one of the generals. Boom. Boom. The army general was obviously very confident in his body, and he didn't mean to avoid Ace at all. The powerful armed domineering instantly covered his entire body. He took a big step, opened his bloody mouth, and headed towards Ace. Come over. Humph. There was a cold light in Ace's eyes, and the flames were instantly compressed hundreds of times under his control, all concentrated on the blade of Slayer, and the blazing high temperature distorted the air in front of the blade. Whoa. Where Coulson was, a huge tornado shot up into the sky, blowing away Ace's flames, revealing a white tiger with blackened hair. When he saw the scene on the battlefield, he glanced at the devil in Ace's hand, and with his super fighting intuition, he immediately felt the horror of the blade. Even he has a creepy feeling. Flash away. But now it was too late to go to support that subordinate. Coulson could only shout with all his strength. Late. Ace let out a low snort, slammed his feet, and crossed the general in an instant, and Slay Demon in his hand also drew a straight white line in the air, passing over his body. Kai, bang. 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 The sound of high temperature burning the flesh sounded. The general's expression slowly became stiff, and the body that was rushing forward stopped step by step, followed by a dazzling line of blood, extending from his chest to the end of his tail. Puff. Blood gushes out like a waterfall, and a shrill scream comes from the general's mouth. Even his armed domineering aura can't stop the sharpness of slaying demons at this time. Boom. The gigantic shark-toothed dragon suddenly fell to the ground and reformed into its original humanoid body. If it wasn't for the domineering resistance of the armed forces, coupled with the powerful body of the animal-type fruit, just one knife would have directly killed him. And now, he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Next. After Ace chopped down this person, he didn't have the slightest plan to make up the knife, so he rushed towards the next person. He didn't come to kill, and he had to weaken the opponent's power in the shortest possible time. Seeing Ace rushing over, the barbarian general immediately felt creepy, turned around and ran away. The lessons learned by his colleagues just now are right in front of his eyes. How could he dare to step forward to head on? But Ace shot out flames from his feet, and his speed increased several times, as if he could catch up with the savage dragon in the next moment. Obviously 6 people besieged Ace. In a blink of an eye, it turned into Ace chasing and killing the general. This dramatic scene left everyone dumbfounded. It can only be said that in this state, Ace's strength has surpassed the general level by too much. Kai. There was another dull sound, and the barbarian general also fell to the ground. Although he didn't die, he temporarily lost his fighting ability. At this moment, just when Ace wanted to continue looking for the next target, Coulson finally rushed over. Damn it. He just underestimated Ace's attack once, and let Ace find a chance to instantly kill 2 of his generals. White Tiger Dimensional Slash. Coulson suddenly pounced on a tiger, and the 10-meter-long wind blade between his claws was compressed to the size of a palm, and it instantly fell in front of Ace. Along the way, a pitch-black crack was left, which seemed to cut open the space. At this moment, Ace's hairs exploded, and he finally felt the threat of his life. Ace's body retreated rapidly, and at the same time, the strange fire instantly formed a flame shield in front of him, but Coulson's move can really cut open the space, and the flame shield can only last for a moment, and then it will totally broken. After a moment, this dimensional slash still broke through to Ace. Bass. Ace suddenly lifted up, magic extermination, and blocked it dangerously, but countless sparks splashed between him and magic execution. Due to his powerful cutting force, and even more violently swayed, devil execution. Away. Come. The Flame Emperor robe on Ace's body shone brightly, showing strong defensive power, and collided with this dimensional slash on his own initiative. Boom. The terrifying power reached Ace and sent him flying back. Snort. Like the sound of tearing cloth, dimensional slash finally tore a hole in the Emperor's robe before disappearing completely, leaving a foot-long wound on Ace's chest, and blood flowed out. The flames covered the top and completed the Emperor's robe again, but Ace's expression became more and more dignified. Still hurt. It seems that it is not so easy for me to leave here. Boom. In the next second, Ace rushed towards Coulson. Now, he must suppress the opponent's strongest player before he can have a chance to leave the battlefield. Since the Golden Lion started the battle, the sun has slowly dropped below the horizon. After half a day of fierce fighting, countless mutated beasts, pirates, and marine corpses have piled up on the battlefield. Countless limbs and arms were scattered among the crowd, and the corpses of huge beasts were still bleeding out. The tens of thousands of pirates brought by the Golden Lion were almost completely wiped out under the joint siege of the admirals and army elites, leaving only a few hundred old members of the Flying Pirates to form a group and still try their best to resist. It's just that their original golden leather armor has been completely stained with blood at this moment, and there are hideous wounds all over their bodies. Everyone's eyes are red. On the side of the world government, naval officers and academies also died and injured more than 1,000, and together with the army, they surrounded these hundreds of pirates. Hugh Shaoshan stood at the forefront of the army, squinting his eyes at the former flying pirates who were surrounded, and said, "Put down your weapons and surrender immediately. I will give you a chance to be judged, so that you will suffer less." Ha ha ha. Accept the trial. A real pirate will not hand over his fate to others. Indigo had already broken an arm, but there was no trace of pain on his face, but he asked with a big laugh. Said, "Old fellows, will you put down your weapons?" Ha 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 ha. Kill. Hundreds of pirates yelled loudly and killed at the same time, which already explained their inner decision. After coming here, no one thought of leaving alive. Okay. Indigo laughed and looked up at the Golden Lion in the sky, and shouted, "Captain, let's go first." Flying pirates, kill. The decisive roar mixed with the pirates' laughter resounded throughout Marie Joya, and the last few hundred flying pirates, holding their weapons high, rushed towards nearly 100 times as many powerful enemies without hesitation. Fiery blood spattered out, merging into the red soil continent under his feet. For freedom. With a smile, Indigo also fell under the knife of the navy. Gia ha 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 ha, for freedom. The Golden Lion looked up to the sky and laughed, as if he couldn't feel the tears from the corner of his eyes. As a pirate, even if you die, you have to choose the way you choose. Coughing up blood continuously from the mouth, the Golden Lion held two swords and slashed countless sword chi in front of him frantically. Garp scattered the sword energy with his punches, and his expression became more and more complicated. He could see that the Golden Lion was at the end of its battle at the moment, and another contemporary pirate was about to enter his grave. Shi Ji. This is the end of your legend. Zhang Guo was covered in golden light, and the divine light in his eyes seemed to be real. With a sudden leap, a dazzling golden shockwave blasted towards the Golden Lion. Boom. The Golden Lion's reaction seemed to be a step slower. The blasting shockwave hit the target. His body seemed to be turned into a cannonball and was blasted to the ground, knocking the ground into a huge crater. Wow. The sputtered gravel completely submerged the Golden Lion's body. In the sky, he glanced at the heavy casualties of the sailors, and Steel Ji Yukong's eyelids twitched again. He never expected that the casualties would be so severe this time. Even Akainu died in this war. Thinking of this, a stern look flashed in Steel Ji Yukong's eyes. Even if Garp stopped him, he would never let that ace leave alive today. Now Coulson and the others have already entangled that ace, and after the old guy Golden Lion is dealt with first, Steel Ji Yukong decides to go to support immediately, and this threat must be completely killed. Wow. A hand stretched out from the pile of rubble, and the Golden Lion's face was extremely pale. After coughing twice, he spit out 2 pieces of internal organs. Holding 2 sabers, the golden lion crawled out of the gravel pit little by little, his whole body's energy and blood decayed, and his body had already begun to release a strong death energy. Facing 3 strong men of the same level, the golden lion's bloody battle up to now is already a miracle in itself. At this moment, this legend of the previous era is finally about to usher in his own end. Steel Gukong stood high in the air, looking down at the golden lion on the ground, looking at the golden lion, as if looking at a dead person. Golden Lion, you have committed a heinous crime. As the commander-in-chief of the entire army of the world government, I sentence you to death. The deafening sound spread throughout the battlefield, and even reached the ears of people all over the world through the videophone bug. Countless people breathed a sigh of relief. The world government finally won the war. Ahem, haha, Kong, you still don't understand. The golden lion kept coughing up blood, but the smile on his face was still contemptuous. While speaking, his heart suddenly burst out, and the terrifying blood sprayed out instantly, completely surrounding the golden lion, and the blood-stained robe on his body danced wildly without wind. How can the fate of pirates be left to others to decide? Boom. 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 The ground under the golden lion's feet exploded in circles, and the red soil seemed to turn into a huge blood lion, which suddenly enveloped the golden lion completely. I am a golden lion. The blood lion raised its head to the sky and let out an earth-shattering roar, and the 3 of Steel Bone Kong in the sky changed their complexions drastically, and quickly backed away. The lunatic Jin Shizi actually took the initiative to shatter his own heart. Even if he had lost all hope of surviving, he still had to deliver the strongest death blow. No one wants this shot down on them. But in the next second, the blood lion didn't jump at the 3 people in the sky, but rushed towards Field Marshal Coulson at lightning speed. Gia ha 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 ha. Boy Ace, take good care of my apprentice Ian, ha 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 ha. How powerful is the dying blow of the legendary pirate Golden Lion? No one wants to experience it for themselves. When Coulson heard the thunderous roar behind him, the blood lion transformed from the Golden Lion had already crossed a distance of nearly 100 meters at top speed and rushed behind him. Madman. You lunatic. Coulson only had time to let out a terrified roar, barely covering himself with a windshield, and was instantly swallowed by the blood lion. Boom. The earth-shattering terrorist explosion set off a wave of air that soared into the sky, sending Ace and the remaining generals flying into the air and falling hundreds of meters away. The red smoke from the explosion covered half of the battlefield with blood. Base. Base. The 2 big sharp knives of the Golden Lion shot out from the smoke and dust, and penetrated into the soil under Ace's feet. Gone. That arrogant and domineering Golden Lion left this world resolutely in the way he chose. Ace stood, watching the smoke and dust dissipate silently, bent down slowly, pulled out the 2 famous swords of the Golden Lion, and carried them on his back. You may not be a good person, but you are a real pirate. Call. The strong wind blowing away the smoke and dust revealed a deep pit with a diameter of 10 meters. Inside the deep pit, only Coulson was kneeling on one knee, but the Golden Lion was completely gone. After blooming, turn into dust. This is the freedom of pirates, and this is the ending chosen by Golden Lion himself. Whether it is a soldier on the battlefield or an ordinary citizen in front of the screen, they will always engrave this shocking scene in their hearts. Golden Lion has done it. He will become an eternal legend in this sea like Roger. Cough cough. In the deep pit, Coulson couldn't help but cough twice and vomited blood. The army uniform on his body was already in tatters, and several bowl-sized blood holes on his abdomen and shoulders kept gushing out blood. Golden Lion's final blow was too sudden. Although he managed to block it, it was obvious that Coulson was seriously injured at this moment. Ace watched from a distance. His eyes had already released a dangerous cold light. If he wanted to kill the field marshal, now is definitely the best chance. But at this moment, Ace's face suddenly changed, and he quickly turned his head and looked to the right. Everyone in the Yandi pirates who had just left rushed back with a lot of color. And behind them, there were more than a dozen government agents wearing masks and black suits chasing after them. CP0. This strange attire immediately allowed Ace to determine the identities of these people. Captain. The leader is also handsome. Still in the distance, Willie shouted anxiously, with the injured Ian still on his back. Ian was obviously seriously injured in the fight with those men in black, and has fallen into a coma. What? Ace's heart sank suddenly. The government actually has a hidden handsome master. Ahem. Coulson staggered out of the pit, and looked at Ace with a grim expression. I told you, don't even think about leaving. This is Mary Joya. Experience it well. The world government is unfathomable. Coulson's words made Ace's expression extremely serious. Not counting Grandpa Garp, Cyborg Kong, Sengoku, Coulson, and that unknown CP0 leader, their Yandy pirates are about to fall into the siege of 4 handsome powerhouses. It can be said that it has reached a real desperate situation. However, to Ace's surprise, those agents were not in a hurry to make a move, but instead forced everyone from the Yandy pirates to Ace's side. What happened to Ian and the others? Ace's pupils flickered, thinking about strategies quickly. Fortunately, those men in black seemed to be hesitant to attack and didn't try their best. Ian just passed out, Willie replied. Are you worried about making a shot? Ace narrowed his eyes slightly. Obviously, these men in black have some problems, but there is no time for Ace to think about these things at this moment. The strong men of the Navy have all surrounded them. Fire Fist. Just grab it. Coulson wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, as if he was certain to win Ace. Steel Bone Kong and Sengoku also fell to the ground from the other side, forming a triangle with Coulson and the CP0 man in black, surrounding Ace in the center. Da-da. Unexpectedly, Garp landed beside Ace without hesitation. The complexions of the powerhouses of the world government suddenly changed, especially the warring states couldn't help shouting out. Garp. Ace is already a pirate. Don't do anything you regret. Warring states didn't want to see this old friend stand against him. Click, click. Garp took out a donut out of nowhere, biting into crumbs all over his beard. You're right. People can't do things that they regret. I don't know why, but I always feel like I lost Ace once. Having said that, Garp suddenly looked at Sengoku with firm eyes. I don't want to feel that feeling anymore. After today, I will surrender myself. But now, I just want to protect my grandson. Grandfather, standing behind Garp, Ace suddenly felt an unprecedented warm feeling at this moment. In this life, for him, Garp finally made a different choice. HMPH. Garp, it seems that you are really old-fashioned. Coulson looked at Garp viciously. I will report to the 5 old stars and save you a place in the big submarine prison. After finishing speaking, Coulson turned his head to look at Zhang Guo, and said, Zhang Guo, what are you waiting for? Even if Garp rebelled, we still have 4 commanders here. Do you really want to let them go? Walk. At this moment, Zhang Guo looked ferocious and yelled at Coulson, shut up. Coulson choked, but felt the madness in Zhang Guo's eyes, and he didn't dare to provoke the results of this state, so he turned his head resentfully. For Garp's choice, the most heartbreaking thing is the warring states period. He and Garp have fought side by side for decades. He never thought that one day they would face each other, but now he has no choice. Breathe. Breath. Taking a deep breath, Sengoku's eyes became firm again. Now that the positions are opposite, for the justice of the Navy, there is only one battle. Boom. Warring states took the lead, and the Golden Buddha form rushed to Garp in an instant, and the terrifying shockwave collided with Garp's fist. Steel Bone Kong also attacked Ace at the same time. His body was full of murderous intent, and he hated the Yandy pirates to the extreme. Coulson, who was seriously injured, and the rest of the generals continued to attack Ace from the edge of the battlefield, making Ace look even more embarrassed. Those ordinary generals in schools could not intervene in the battles of these strong men. They could only watch from a distance. After all, the aftermath of the battle could cause them serious injuries. At this moment, Hu Shaoshan was rescuing the injured sailors on the battlefield, and suddenly saw the major general who was going to Kibahe for help, and ran over by himself. What's the matter with you? Where are those Chi Wuhai? Ah. They have already come up. Hu Shaoshan was stunned for a moment. The major general's subordinates in front of him absolutely did not have the guts to lie about the military situation. So, those 7 Marshal Cs must have come up at this time. But since they have already come up, why hide their whereabouts? Hu Shaoshan suddenly felt a little irritable, and an ominous premonition flooded his heart. Without hesitation, Hu Shaoshan immediately turned around anxiously and looked around the entire battlefield, trying his best to search for the traces of those Kiwahe. But except for the most central battlefield, the rest of the place is full of soldiers from the Navy and Army, and there is no sign of Shichibukai. Is it? Hu Shaoshan was startled, turned his head to look at the battlefield in the center, scanned the entire battlefield from left to right, and did not miss any corner, but there were no other figures except for the many strong fighters who were fighting fiercely. Suddenly, a fast-moving shadow on the ground attracted Hu Shaoshan's attention. What made his pupils shrunk was that there was no specific object corresponding to this shadow. This strange phenomenon made Huo Shaoshan's eyes widen suddenly. The speed of the shadow was extremely fast, using the ubiquitous shadow as cover. Without making a sound, it quickly moved to Field Marshal Coulson's feet in almost an instant, and directly merged into his shadow. And Coulson, who concentrated on attacking Ace, didn't notice it at all, and his powerful, informative, domineering didn't seem to have the slightest effect. Hu Shaoshan's pupils contracted suddenly, and the hairs all over his body suddenly exploded, and he shouted out with all his strength. Marshal Coulson, watch your feet. But his reminder was still a step too late. From the shadow under Coulson's feet, dozens of extremely dark and sharp thorns suddenly rose from the ground, piercing Coulson's wound instantly with lightning speed. Shadow horn gun. In the next second, a deep voice sounded from the shadow under Coulson's feet. Poof, Coulson, who was already seriously injured, turned pale again under the sudden sneak attack, and spat out a mouthful of blood. On the originally strong body, there are more than a dozen deep or shallow conical wounds, like bright red lips, making people feel extremely ferocious and terrifying. Court death. Coulson's eyes were wide open, the veins on his forehead seemed to burst at any moment, and his two tiger claws slammed dozens of wind blades towards his feet. Boom boom boom. There was a huge roar, and the ground where his shadow was located was torn apart by the wind blade. And in his shadow, countless pitch-black bats suddenly exploded and flew towards the distance quickly, and gathered together tens of meters away, forming Moria's body. Asshole. Coulson didn't understand why his knowledgeable, domineering didn't notice the other party, so he seemed even more irritable. Enduring the excruciating pain in his body, he wanted to rush forward and tear the other party to shreds. But the next moment, the ground tens of meters below his feet turned into fine grains of sand with a bang, and then, a terrifying suction force came out from the sandpit, continuously sucking Coulson's feet. If it was Coulson in his heyday, he would definitely be able to break free from this bunker easily, but first he was seriously injured by the Golden Lion's dying blow, and then he was successfully attacked by the dark guy in front of him. At this moment, Coulson's strength is already 10 not 1. To be precise, his strength has almost dropped to the handsome level. Therefore, even if Coulson tried his best to break free at this moment, he could only slightly slow down the speed at which the bunker swallowed his body. At this moment, a cold voice came from the bunker under his feet. Sand-binding prison. Boom. The sea of sand in the entire area suddenly rose from the ground, and then, like a huge hand of sand grains, it suddenly grabbed Coulson in. Then the grains of sand compressed and collapsed inward in an instant, and the terrifying squeezing force made Coulson seem to have turned into flesh on a backing board, and was firmly locked in a desert coffin, unable to move at all. Grumpy. The sea of sand was churning, a bulge appeared on the ground first, and then a platform made of sand rose up from the ground, and the remaining 5 Shichibukai stood on this platform. The person who turned the red earth into a desert and controlled the sea of sand is Crocodile, who has developed the fruit of the sand into a stronger one. And as long as there is Hawkeye, the only tyrant bear who has no intersection with Ace can only stay on the platform honestly. Crocodile put his hands in the sea of sand, and his expression was a little ferocious, as if forcibly restraining Coulson had already reached his limit. Willie, hurry up. At this moment, because many strong men in the Navy and Army are concentrating on attacking Ace with all their strength, the remaining members of the Entei pirates are temporarily ignored. Taking advantage of the opponent's ignorance, Willie's eyes flickered, and his right hand suddenly pulled out the Yandi divine spear bestowed on him by Ace from the green lotus mark on the center of his brow. At the moment when Crocodile shouted loudly, Willie's muscles burst out, and he threw the spear towards the desert coffin that wrapped Coulson. Call out. There was no violent roar, and the divine spear disappeared from Willie's hand in an instant, and plunged into the coffin in the desert the next moment. Do not. Coulson struggled with all his strength, and even used the secret technique to hurt himself, violently breaking the sand prison on his body. Puff. Crocodile spat out a mouthful of blood, and his hands were shaken from the sand, but he still stared at Coulson's position. Must hit. Coulson looked at the divine spear that shot towards his chest with a ferocious expression, and jumped up with all his strength, but the speed of the divine spear was so fast that it finally sank into his lower body in an instant. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the 4-colored flames instantly engulfed Coulson's lower body completely. Such a short distance, coupled with the fact that his body was already covered with wounds, even his powerful, armed color, domineering, had little effect. Coulson's shrill screams resounded throughout the battlefield, forcing all the world government powerhouses who besieged Ace to stop their attacks, and turned their heads to look here in disbelief. Under their sight, The flames instantly burned Coulson's crotch down to ashes, and it was still spreading upwards. Chap. Coulson was also considered vicious, and he swung a wind blade, cutting off his lower body completely, and relying on his powerful body control ability, he instantly stopped the spray of blood. But in this way, he has already lost most of his life. If that was the case, at least Coulson could save his own life as long as the military doctor rushed over to rescue him in time. But at this moment, Ace's voice came slowly. I hope the tigress in your family doesn't mind that you are missing 3 legs. Puff. Coulson's face suddenly turned red, and just trying to swallow the blood, it spurted out again. Fatal blow. The blood was sprayed out together with Coulson's last life. Perhaps, Coulson is the first and will be the last handsome strong man killed by Zui Dun. Plop. Coulson's body lost its white tiger form in midair and turned back into a human form, but his lower body was gone, and he fell to the ground with such a miserable appearance. And in the center of the battlefield, the commander-in-chief of the whole army, Steel Ji Kong, was so angry that he couldn't speak. He raised his finger and pointed at the kibukai on the sandy platform. The anger in his chest made him want to vomit blood. He never imagined that the Kiwahei policy that the world government had just formulated would appear in this way for the first time. Killed the world government's own field marshal? I hate it. Steelbone Kong raised his head to the sky and roared furiously. The sound waves oscillated in circles. Puff. In the end, he spit out a mouthful of blood, and most of his energy disappeared instantly, making him look a little older in an instant. Why? Warring States stared at Hawkeye and the others. He really couldn't figure it out. Hawkeye and the others might have had a good impression of Ace before, but no matter how strong the favor was, it wouldn't make them dare to openly fight against the world government. After all, in this way, their Kiwahei legal status will be completely gone. Whoosh. Moria also skimmed onto the sandy platform. After he succeeded in attacking Coulson, although he retreated immediately, he still suffered some injuries. Raising his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, Moria grinned. Why? Because I'm Entei Pirates, Mariah. And Crocodile also laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha. I didn't expect to be so exciting to join the captain's command. I actually killed the marshal of the world government with my own hands. Crocodile's expression was a little crazy, and he looked at the warring states jokingly. Let's get to know each other again. I am Yandy Pirates, Crocodile. Ha ha ha. Boom. The ground under the feet of the warring states period suddenly cracked in circles of cracks. Because of the extreme anger and disbelief, he couldn't control his aura anymore. He didn't ask the identities of the remaining Shichibukai. In his opinion, to be able to stand on the side of Fire Fist Ace under such circumstances, he must also be a member of Yandy Pirates. The Kiwaheis summoned by their world government with all their efforts, are all members of Yandy Pirates? Warring states suddenly felt that the intelligence agencies of the entire world government seemed to be a joke. They were all arranged by a brat like Ace? On the sandy platform, Baltharomaishang guessed what Sengoku was thinking when he saw Sengoku's reaction. He really wanted to tell Sengoku loudly that he was really not a member of Yandy Pirates. But feeling the murderous intent that Hawkeye locked onto him, Bartholomew sighed and chose to give up explaining. After all, any fool can see that even if he explains it, from today onwards, there will be no Kiwahei system in this world, and his latent plan has been completely ruined. As for Hancock and Jinbei, they naturally have their own judgments in this situation. Ace has been kind to them, but now they are in a desperate situation. Of course, they are also willing to help Ace. Therefore, they will not speak out to explain. This sudden change in the battlefield fell into the eyes of the soldiers on the scene, making them feel like they were having a nightmare. World Government Field Marshal, a strong man like the magic needle of Dingai. He suddenly died in front of them, at the hands of the Kiwahei, who should have been on their side. And what are those Kiwahei talking about? I'm a member of Yandy Pirates. This sentence, in this half-day war, was like a nightmare, constantly echoing in the minds of all the soldiers. I don't know when, another strong man will suddenly appear, laughing and announcing his identity as Yandy Pirates. They looked around nervously, holding the weapons in their hands tightly, fearing that they would suddenly die in the hands of a member of Yandy Pirates who was hiding their identities. Don't turn off the video phone bug, the handsome strongman headed by CP0 suddenly yelled out. Only then did the staff in charge of photography recover from the fear, and quickly turned off the phone bug in front of them as if waking up from a dream. But Coulson's death had already been conveyed to the eyes of the people all over the world through the video phone bug. The terrifying power of Yandy Pirates completely shocked the whole world. There is no need to think too much. In the days to come, Yandi pirates and their powerful members will become a topic of discussion for everyone. Marie Joya's battlefield. Wow, the leader of CP0 threw off the suit jacket on his body, and suddenly burst out with a handsome and powerful aura. It seemed that Coulson's death finally forced him to attack with all his strength. What is even more shocking is that those men in black behind him all burst out with the strength of the peak generals. How could there be so many strong men above the general level all of a sudden? Moreover, these men in black were all faintly entwined with a trace of black air, which made people feel a cold aura from a long distance away. Ace's pupils shrank even more, not to mention the extraordinary strength of these men in black. It was the black energy that made Ace feel very uncomfortable. Let Ace feel that this breath is very similar to the curse in the devil fruit. Could it be related to those extraterrestrial demons again? Ace's eyes narrowed slightly. If this is the case, then things will be a big deal. The members of CP0 have all been corrupted by demons. However, this also explains why these men in black didn't want to make a move just now, and now they have people turn off all the video phone bugs in advance before they are ready to make a move. Obviously, I don't want to expose myself, so as not to let some caring people notice that something is wrong with them. Do it. Leave no one behind. The man in black headed by CP0 gave orders to the people behind him with a killing intent. And the Steel Bone Kong and Sengoku, under the grief and anger, also rushed towards Ace and the others with amazing murderous intentions. The shame that Yandi pirates gave to the world government must be washed away. Hawkeye and the others came to Ace's side to protect them. At this time, both sides had 3 commander-level strengths, and their peak strengths were comparable. Under the collision, there was a roar. However, at the level of general-level combat power, the men in black completely crush Ace's side. It is estimated that Willy and the others will not last long before they will be slaughtered. Seeing Willy and others getting more and more embarrassed, Ace was very anxious, but there was not much to do. But at this moment, a huge roar sounded from below the Red Earth continent, and a huge ship wrapped in coating broke out of the sea and soared into the sky. Kula Lala. I don't know if we are late. This ship looks like a whale, and it is the flagship of the Whitebeard pirates, the Moby Dick. And above the bow, Whitebeard and a group of captains stood neatly. Boom. The Moby Dick's power was amazing, and it rushed directly to the red soil continent, crashing down, and the solid hull was not damaged at all. On the deck, the feet of the many white-bearded crew members seemed to be glued to the deck, and none of them became unstable due to the violent vibration of the ship. Obviously, the crew of the Whitebeard pirates who came this time are all elites among the elites. That's Whitebeard of the 4 Emperors, Edward Newgate. Behind Whitebeard is their first team captain Marco, as well as JOZ, Sack, and Vista. All 14 captains are here. The voice of a naval officer was a little trembling. Just now, in order to deal with the legendary pirate, the Golden Lion, the Navy has gone all out, sacrificed nearly 10,000 naval elites, and paid an extremely painful price. Here. But now, a pirate stronger than the Golden Lion, Whitebeard, the most terrifying sea emperor in the sea, came to this battlefield with a force stronger than the Golden Lion. This moment, the entire battlefield suddenly became silent. Between heaven and earth, the air seemed to have become extremely heavy, making one feel a little suffocated. Under this suffocating atmosphere, on the Moby Dick, Whitebeard walked to the front of the deck step by step with a naginata in hand. His pair of deep eyes swept across the entire battlefield. On the messy battlefield, there were torn corpses everywhere, and the fragments of the island all over the ground told Whitebeard that he still hadn't been able to witness the final glory of the Golden Lion. Golden Lion. A moment of disappointment appeared on Whitebeard's face, and another old man of the same age completely left this world. But the demeanor of the King of the Sea reappeared on his face in the next second. Golden Lion, this is your choice. In this war, you have no regrets. Kulalalala. As soon as the words fell, Whitebeard slammed the naginata to the side, and his eyes it fell on Ace in the center of the battlefield. Behind Ace, the 2 big sharp knives belonging to the Golden Lion attracted the attention of Whitebeard. With a smile on his face, Whitebeard didn't seem to look at the handsome and powerful men who surrounded Ace at all. You. Daughter Ace. The front page of the most recent newspaper seems to be contracted by you, Kura la la la. After Whitebeard appeared, Ace couldn't hide the excitement on his face, and his lips trembled a little. In his previous life, in order to save him, Whitebeard fought against the powerful Navy alone, and was finally besieged to death. That was always in Ace's heart pain. Now, Whitebeard is standing in front of him alive again. How can Ace not be excited? Ace opened his mouth and was about to respond to Whitebeard, but among the ordinary crew members behind the deck of the Whitebeard pirates, a figure that Ace hated so much appeared in his sight. Blackbeard Teach. That guy hid in the crowd, trying his best not to draw attention, but Ace still saw this disgusting guy at first sight. It can be said that compared to Akainu, the treacherous Blackbeard is the bastard that people hate more. If it was Ace in the previous life, he would definitely rush forward at this moment to fight against Blackbeard, but as a human being in 2 lives, Ace already has a city that is not weak. Suck. Taking a deep breath, Ace's expression became calm again, with a smile on his face, but Ace just nodded towards the Whitebeard. Long-awaited great name. Now, Ace can't directly expose Blackbeard's nature. However, with the advantage of foresight, Ace is confident that in the days to come, before Blackbeard betrays him, he will completely kill him. On the deck of the Moby Dick, Titch the Blackbeard looked at Ace's smiling face, and suddenly felt a sense of horror in his heart. He always felt that Ace in front of him would become the most terrifying enemy in his life. This is Blackbeard's natural ability, and it is precisely because of this magical premonition that he has come to where he is today. But Blackbeard didn't understand, since he had hidden his ambition deep in his heart and kept a low profile on purpose, why this Ace still wanted to kill him. However, since he couldn't figure it out, Blackbeard lowered his head, his eyes flickering coldly, determined to find a chance to kill Ace. The 2 fateful opponents once again put each other on the must-kill list, but this time, Ace is the one with the advantage. On the battlefield, Sengoku looked at Whitebeard vigilantly. HMPH. Whitebeard, do you want to intervene too? Sengoku's face was a little ugly. If the Whitebeard pirates intervened in this war, the outcome would be uncertain. What nonsense. Steel Gu Kong didn't care about Whitebeard's attitude at all, taking advantage of the moment when Ace's attention was a little distracted. Together with CP0 the man in black, he made a sudden move. The 2 slammed their strongest blows at Ace at the same time. This scene fell into the eyes of Whitebeard. Although I haven't made a move in person for a long time, don't take me seriously. Whitebeard turned his body slightly, clenched his left arm into a fist, and slammed in the direction of the steel bone. The air burst in the midst of the buzzing, and cracks suddenly opened like glass shattering. Under this punch, the entire Marie Hoya battlefield trembled suddenly. Countless soldiers were unsteady and nearly fell down. The city wall of Titan City, which was 1,000 meters away, cracked huge cracks with cracking sounds. Many people who saw Whitebeard's ability for the first time couldn't help showing horror expressions on their faces. As for Steel Gukong, who was directly aimed at by Whitebeard's punch, his expression changed drastically. His arms were raised suddenly, crossed in front of him, but he still felt a powerful trembling force rushing into his body instantly. Inside the body. Click. Click. There was a tooth-piercing sound of joints rubbing against each other, and Steel Bones Kong's body trembled violently, obviously enduring great pain. What? Steel Gukong looked ferocious, and he shook his body violently with all his strength. A terrifying airwave was forced out of his body, shaking all the earth and rocks within dozens of meters around into powder, and only then did Steel Gukong get rid of it. The pain of shock force. This is the strength of Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world. 8 years have passed since the top war in the anime. At that time, Whitebeard was already in his later years, and he usually needed infusions to maintain his life, and his strength was far from that of his peak. And now, the strength that Whitebeard has shown even a little bit makes people feel a terrifying sense of oppression. But at the same time, Steelbone Kong and the CP0 leaders' all-out attack on Ace did not disappear, and 2 handsome and terrifying punches came towards Ace at the same time. But just when Ace raised his hands to resist, his face suddenly changed, and the power in his body faded like a tide. Time is up, whoosh. In just an instant, a divine bird wrapped in blue flames descended from the sky, and suddenly blocked Ace's body, and the terrifying fist wind slammed on the divine bird. Immediately, blue flames splashed everywhere, and the power of the handsome and strong man made Shenao's body instantly become dilapidated, with dense wounds covering his body, as if he had been directly and seriously injured. But the next moment, blue flames burned on these wounds, and those seemingly terrifying wounds healed quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a few seconds, the divine bird had completely returned to its original state. The wings spread out, and the body turned back into a human form. It is Marco, the captain of the Whitebeard pirates. Thank you, Marco. Ace clutched his chest. Chijin Fentianian's backlash made Ace pale, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Yo. As expected of a handsome and strong man, it really hurts. Marco also wiped the cold sweat from his head, but immediately waved his hand to Ace with a smile, and said, "Haha, no thanks. I don't know why, but I have a crush on you, kid. So is Dad." That's the captain of the first team of the Whitebeard Pirates, the Phoenix Marco. That's the ability of the animal-type phantom beast species that is rarer than the natural type. The generals on the government side looked at the scene in shock, but in the next second, an even more shocking scene appeared. Kulalalala, you're right. Whitebeard lifted the naginata beside him and gave a sudden pause. The cloak behind him moved without wind, and a domineering aura soared to the skies spontaneously. I like the little guy Ace very much. Today, I have secured him. A familiar feeling flooded Ace's heart. This scene also happened in his previous life. Even if he started all over again, this deep bond seemed to be able to connect them across time and space. Ace couldn't help but silently read out that familiar name. Daddy. At the same time, whether it is Sengoku or Sora, their moods have sunk to the bottom at the moment. They can't figure out why Whitebeard would take action for a stranger like Ace. But now that Whitebeard has already spoken, with his unwavering character, he will definitely protect Ace. But the world government has suffered a lot from Ace this time. Because of him, they have already lost all face, so they must not let Ace leave. Let's entangle them together. I have already asked for help from the 5 old stars, and the hidden masters in Titan City will be here soon. This time, it was the man in black from CP0 who issued the order first, and as soon as he finished speaking, he rushed towards Ace first. But Zhang Guo and Steel Gu Kong were also taken aback for a moment. Even they didn't know that there were any hidden masters in the government, but after looking at each other, they also gritted their teeth and attacked Garp and Hawkeye respectively. Although Whitebeard is very strong, he is only handsome in the end. Now they are 3 against 3. If there are really hidden masters in Titan City, then the government can immediately reverse the situation. Humph. Whitebeard snorted coldly, holding a naginata, and was about to lead the captains behind him to make a move. But at this moment, a figure with bare upper body climbed up from the sea onto the red earth continent with bare hands, jumped up suddenly, and suddenly landed beside Whitebeard. This man's speed was so fast that even the powerful captains didn't react. When the other party gained a firm foothold, their faces changed drastically, and they all pulled out their weapons and shouted. "Who is it?" As he spoke, he rushed towards him. "Don't make any moves." Whitebeard raised his hand to stop them, looked at the man in front of him, and said in a hesitant voice, "Really? Ha ha ha, it's me. Long time no see." Lei Li pulled out the coat tied around his waist, and put it on with a smile. "And I will ask you something as soon as we meet. Our captain's son, Ace, and his crew, please give them a ride and send them to the new world." Huh. This time, even the Whitebeard couldn't help showing a look of surprise on his face. "You said, Ace's little baby is Roger's son?" First he was stunned for a while, and then Whitebeard burst into a hearty laugh. "Kulalalala, it's really unexpected. However, this powerful bloodline is really exactly the same as Roger's." "What?" Except for Whitebeard, the remaining members of the Whitebeard Pirates couldn't help jumping up in fright. In fact, each of them had a good impression of Ace for a long time, and admired him for being so powerful at such a young age. But who would have thought that Ace's identity would be so terrifying? Roger's son? If this news gets out, it will definitely cause a huge earthquake in the whole world. Haha, Ace is indeed very strong. I have a hunch that he will definitely grow beyond the level of the captain. Rayleigh, with a strong confidence on his face, rushed towards the battlefield after speaking. "After I go, Ace and the others will leave it to you." Whitebeard's expression was taken aback by Lei Li's words. He could hear the confidence in Lei Li's voice. Obviously, Ace's potential shocked Lei Li deeply. Is this Fire Fist Ace the one who is about to achieve a new era? On the battlefield at this time, Ace had already fallen into a coma due to the huge backlash, and the members of the Yandi pirates desperately resisted the attacks of the generals of the government, fighting and retreating. But the strength of the opponents' more than a dozen generals is too strong, and the uninterrupted attacks have left each of them dripping with blood and scars. Go to hell. Huang Yuan grabbed a gap defended by the Yandi pirates, with a wretched smile on his face, turned into a golden beam of light and rushed in instantly. The lasers shining on 2 fingers were aimed at Ace, causing everyone in the Yandi pirates to suddenly fell into a desperate situation. "Give me back." With a loud roar, Lei Li inserted into the battlefield instantly at this critical moment, and punched the yellow ape's face from the side. This sudden attack caused him to shoot back suddenly, and smashed a huge one on the ground. Pit. Rayleigh. Zhang Guo immediately recognized Lei Li's identity, and he didn't know what to say at this moment. There is another handsome and strong man. Stop. In the next second, Zhang Guo's expression changed drastically, and he desperately took a blow from Carp, and rushed towards Rayleigh. But he was still too late, and he saw that Lei Li, who looked like lightning, appeared in the deep pit where the yellow monkey was in an instant, and pulled out a katana sword from his waist with his right hand, with an unusually calm expression on his face. Boy Flash, you can't escape this time. Kai, blood sprayed, a sword owl's head. Lei Li had a cold smile on his face, and beside him was the headless corpse of the Admiral Huang Yuan. This slightly terrifying scene made countless soldiers of the world government show fearful expressions on their faces, and they couldn't help but take a few steps back. Another admiral was killed. Isn't today really a day of disaster for the Navy? Regardless of Sengoku, who was frozen in the middle of the road, Lei Li dodged in front of the Yandi pirates, and lightly swiped the katana in his hand towards the ground behind him. Boom. A gully tens of meters long separated the government forces from the Yandi pirates. Lei Li gradually showed a fighting spirit, pointing at tens of thousands of government troops with a knife in his hand. Next, let me be your opponent. Gudong. Obviously Lei Li's words were very arrogant, but with the murderous aura from killing the yellow ape just now, all the soldiers were speechless and could only swallow a mouthful of saliva, showing a trace of fear on their faces. Seeing that the tens of thousands of his subordinates were intimidated by the aura of Lei Li alone, Steel Ji Yukong felt a little bit of hatred, and shouted. What are you afraid of? Come with me. I must keep the Fire Fist today. After finishing speaking, Steelbone Kong rushed out first, followed by Sengoku and CP0 leaders, while the rest of the general-level powerhouses scattered in all directions, trying to bypass Rayleigh from the side and chase the unconscious ace. But the leaders of warring states and CP0 were immediately stopped by Carp and Hawkeye. Facing more than a dozen generals who came at a high speed, the white beard standing on the bow of Moby Dick punched his fists domineeringly in front of him. Go back to me. Ping! The air suddenly shattered into countless cracks like shattered glass, and the next moment, the whole space trembled crazily, and a terrifying shock force instantly bombarded those general-level powerhouses. Boom. A loud noise suddenly made the bodies of these generals tremble crazily, their expressions suddenly changed, and they were bombarded by this huge force at a faster speed and shot back. Kula la la la, my dear sons, go and bring Ace Boy back. Whitebeard grinned and waved his hands, and the 13 captains jumped out first, followed by hundreds of elites from the Whitebeard pirates also rushed out shouting and killing. Escorted around the Yandi pirates at the fastest speed, and protected them to quickly retreat in the direction of the Moby Dick. Can't let them go. Steel Gakong's eyes were tearing apart, and he had already displayed 120% of his strength, but Lei Li, Garp and Hawkeye were like a steel gate, completely blocking their offensive. Swish. Marco, who had reverted to the form of a phoenix, fell from the sky and landed on the bow of the Moby Dick first. He glanced at the three of Rayleigh and asked. Father, should we help them? Haha, they're all monsters. They don't need our help. Whitebeard raised the flagon again while speaking, took a big gulp of spirits, and then spilled the rest of the wine in front of the boat. Let me toast the old lion again. After finishing speaking, he glanced at Ace and his party who had retreated to the Moby Dick, and Whitebeard turned around and walked towards the cabin, while arranging. Next, Marco, you will be in charge of arranging the members of Yandi Pirates. Let the ship's doctor treat them well. I am very optimistic about Roger's son, Kula la la la. Marco was taken aback. It was the first time he had heard the captain comment on a junior. He turned around and glanced at Ace who had fallen into a coma. Marco also had a premonition that bringing him back to the new world this time would definitely set off a stormy sea. The power structure of the new world will definitely undergo earth-shaking changes as a result. Breathe, breath. Marco took a deep breath, then shouted towards the front of the boat. Joes. Let's go. The captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, Joz, is a taciturn and strong man. After hearing what Marco said, he didn't say much, and his arms turned into shining diamonds in an instant. Boom. Boom. With 2 loud bangs, Joz's hands suddenly plunged into the ground of the Red Earth continent, and then his arms swelled in a circle, and the terrifying force spread down the ground along Joz's hands. The next moment, the entire ground where Moby Dick was standing trembled instantly, and then was pushed violently by Joz, and the huge landmass, together with the Moby Dick on the ground, moved towards the new world, sliding off the side of the sea. Whoosh! At the last second, Joz jumped up and onto the Moby Dick. The Whitebeard pirates and Ace's subordinates successfully retreated from the siege of the government army. Ha 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 ha, Cyborg, after becoming the commander-in-chief of the whole army, you have become weaker. Lei Li and Cyborg Kong fought the numbers, and said with a big smile, now that Ace has left, let's let go and play a game. Boom boom boom. The fight between the 6 commander-level powerhouses immediately caused the battlefield to be filled with smoke and dust again, and countless deep pits were formed on the ground under the attack of several people. This battle lasted for nearly another hour, but at this moment, several astonishing auras belonging to handsome masters suddenly rose into the sky in every corner of Titan City, forming black pillars of air that dispersed the clouds in the sky began to move quickly towards the battlefield here. The faces of Lei Li and the others changed. They didn't expect that there were so many masters hidden in the government. Boom. With a sudden blow, the steel bone hole was blasted away, and Lei Li laughed and said, that's it for today. Next time I have a chance, I will come to you again. After finishing speaking, Lei Li turned around and headed towards the edge of the Red Earth continent at high speed, and after Hawkeye squinted, he also turned and left quickly. But Garp plopped, sat cross-legged on the spot, took out a donut and ate it. Waring states, I have saved my grandson. I will do what I said, and my life is yours. HMPH. Tie him up and take him to the undersea prison immediately. Gang Gakong's expression turned extremely ugly, and Zhang Guo just opened his mouth, but in the end he didn't speak for his old friend. 3 days later, in Morgan's newspaper, a striking headline caught everyone's eyes. Guardian. The birth of a new emperor. Without redundant elaboration, a series of jaw-dropping reward orders were attached to the newspaper. Yandy Pirates. Captain. Yandy Ace. Bounty. 1.2 billion Baileys. Crew. Quanglei Anil Road. Bounty. 800 million Baileys. Sand Crocodile. Bounty. 600 million Baileys. Shadow Mariah. Bounty. 600 million Baileys. Chingyan Willie. Bounty. 500 million Baileys. Death Surgeon Luo. Bounty. 500 million berries. The giant soldier pirate group under his command. Aoki Tori. Bounty. 300 million berries. Red Onibroki. Bounty. 300 million Baileys. Pansfree. Bounty. 200 million Baileys. Little Giant Lily. Bounty. 200 million Baileys. Oimo. Bounty. 100 million Pele Cassie. Bounty. 100 million berries. With a total bounty of 45 billion Baileys, the Entei pirates are already approaching the 4 emperors. In addition, the world government announced that the Shichibukai policy that had just been implemented would be cancelled immediately, and the remaining 6 Kibukai were all offered rewards again, and the bounties were all raised to a terrifying level. In order to save the face of the government, the requirement of only death was added. It seems that the top leaders of the world government have made up their minds to kill all the pirates who made troubles in Marijoa to vent their anger. New World, the headquarters of the Whitebeard pirates. Ace has woken up from the coma, but his face is still a little pale, but now he has a smile on his face. Ian, come here. Ace sat on the edge of the bed and waved to Ian. Captain. Ian was in a low mood, and he had 2 big sharp knives belonging to the Golden Lion pinned to his waist. Although the Golden Lion was not a good person, he could be said to have taught Ian all he had during the 6 months of getting along. Ian's master. The Golden Lion died in Marijoa, and Ian couldn't help but feel a little sad. Ian, the death of the Golden Lion was his own choice, and for him, it is the best ending to bloom in front of the eyes of people all over the world. Ace comforted. I understand. Having experienced the Battle of Marijoa, Ian is no longer the boy he was a year ago. Come on, tell me, do you want the name of the Golden Lion to continue to spread in this sea? Ace looked at Ian and asked. Although Ian was a little puzzled, he still nodded. Okay. Hold out your hand. With a smile on his face, Ace held Ian's right hand, and then the little snake of falling heart flame came out of Ace's palm, and spit out a ball of blue energy in his mouth into Ian's right hand. Ian's body was shaken immediately, and he closed his eyes to feel it. The next second, his eyes suddenly opened wide, and he asked excitedly, Boat. Captain, is this the ability of Piao Piao Guo? Haha, not bad. Ace flipped his hand and took the falling heart flame back into his body. Before the war, the Golden Lion asked me to pass on his fruit ability to you. Only with the ability of fluttering fruit, the Golden Lion, the lion's swordsmanship will be brought into full play. So, the moment the Golden Lion died, I got back his abilities. Master, a touch of emotion flashed in Ian's eyes. Although he hadn't been with Golden Lion for a long time, Golden Lion obviously wanted to teach his apprentice well. From now on, I will be called Sword Lion. While speaking, Ian's body floated up. At this moment, the old lion seemed to have returned to this world. Cough. Ace coughed twice, but he was in a good mood, and said, "Let's go and see how Willy and the others are doing." The injuries they suffered in Marie Joya are unclear. But as soon as the two walked out of the ward, they found that the pirates on the entire island were running fast, as if they were in a mess because of something. Ace felt a little strange, not knowing what happened to them. And at this moment, Marco passed by not far away. His face was very ugly, and he kept directing the pirates under him to move towards the port. "Marco." Ace waved his hand and shouted, and asked, "What's going on?" Marco turned his head following the voice, saw Ace, forced a smile, and said, "It's Ace, are you ready?" "It's almost there." Ace pointed to the surroundings and asked, "This is?" "It's nothing serious, it's the beast pirates who attacked 2 islands within our sphere of influence," Marco said. "I'm following my father's order to stop them. The reason why we went late in Marie Joya's war is because we met that lunatic Kaido on the way." Marco also had a somewhat helpless expression. At that time, he also wanted to go to Marie Joya to join in the fun, but he was shot by his father. It was stopped, so now it's time to retaliate against us. Ace's expression was a little weird. With Kaido's combative character, preventing him from participating in the world's top war might really drive him crazy. "Want us to help?" "That's not necessary. Kaido didn't make a move himself this time, so it's enough for us to lead the team." After Marco finished speaking, he waved his hand and said, "Okay, no more chatting. I have to leave soon. This time I have to teach those guys with well-developed limbs and simple minds in the 100 Beasts Pirates a lesson." After speaking, Marco turned into a phoenix and flew towards the sea. And Ace didn't insist. After all, the Yandi pirates' current physical condition is not very good, so they can only watch more than 10 huge pirate ships slowly leave the island's harbor. Next, Ace went to see the injuries of the crew members, and after confirming that there was nothing wrong with them, he finally returned to his room with peace of mind to check what he had gained in this war. This Marie Joya battle can be said to be completely comparable to, or even surpass the top battle in the previous life, and the number of powerful people participating in the war is even more terrifying. In this fierce war, although Ace suffered backlash because of forcibly improving his strength, he was seriously injured. But the fierce confrontation also greatly improved Ace's physical strength. At this moment, his physical strength has reached the 10th level of a quasi-general. When his injuries are fully recovered, it won't take long for him to become a real general-level powerhouse. At that time, one step closer to reaching the pinnacle of this world. In addition, on the attribute panel, Ace destroyed more than points of magic energy again, indicating that Ace can now exchange for a life-returning pill again. Dong dong. At this time, someone knocked on the door suddenly, and Ace swept over with his knowledge, and found that Raleigh, the king of the underworld, was outside. "Uncle Raleigh." Ace opened the door with some surprise and welcomed Rayleigh in. Ace wasn't too worried about whether Rayleigh, Garp, and Hawkeye would be able to escape from Marie Joya, but now that Rayleigh was intact, Ace breathed a sigh of relief. "Where are Hawkeye and Grandpa Garp?" Ace asked with some doubts, seeing that Raleigh was alone. Rayleigh's expression was a little dignified, and he replied, "After Hawkeye returned to the New World, he went to find Redhead, Garp." Rayleigh hesitated, which gave Ace a bad feeling. "When we left, Garp took the initiative to stay. Now he is probably imprisoned in the submarine prison." Raleigh said, "He has been in the Navy all his life, and now he must be very sad." "Grandfather." Ace felt a pain in his chest, and he could imagine the pain in Garp's heart. One side was family affection, and the other side was duty. No matter which side he chose, he would be very painful. However, at this moment, Ace still made up his mind. Even if he wanted to break through the submarine prison, he would rescue Garp. A week later, in the windless zone in the first half of the Great Route, the large submarine prison advanced to the city. This is the Navy's most terrifying prison, where countless ferocious criminals arrested by the Navy are imprisoned. Not only is it heavily guarded, but the surrounding sea area is also haunted by huge sea kings from time to time, so it has the name of Bronze Wall and Iron Wall. For hundreds of years, except for the Golden Lion, the only criminals who could get out of the city were their corpses. At this time, advance to the basement of the 4 floors of Scorching Hell, in the office of Director Magellan. "Shiryu, if you dare to kill prisoners indiscriminately again, don't blame me for being merciless." Magellan's face was ugly, and the purple venom was bubbling from his body, as if he would attack the person in front of him at any time. "Hey, Director." It's just killing a few damn guys. Prison warden Shiliu Yuji was holding a cigar, with an expression of indifference on his face. Director, do you still want to deal with it now? I shot? A terrible criminal just came to our prison, haha. Shilu's meaning is very simple. At this critical moment, Shilu's combat effectiveness is very important for advancing the city. HMPH. Magellan's face darkened again, and he snorted coldly and said, "You'd better stop calling Mr. Garp a criminal. You must have your own reasons for doing that. You go to the first floor of the sea to be vigilant now. You are the biggest here, you have the final say." Shiliu of the Rain didn't have much respect on his face, and with a frivolous smile, he turned and walked out of the office with the knife in his hand. Regardless of Magellan's livid face behind him, Shiliu got on the elevator and went straight to the top floor of the prison. After reaching the top floor, he waved to several sea soldiers, and they opened the prison gate for Shiliu, allowing him to walk onto the pier. Surrounding the city of advancement was a huge vortex-shaped ocean current. If the Gate of Justice was not opened, then no ships could approach the city of advancement from the sea. Warning? Shiliu curled his lips in disdain. Except for the golden lion with the piao piao fruit, no one has reached the city of advancement. And now, that old guy is dead. Then this is the real bronze wall and iron wall. Feeling a little bored, Shiliu turned his head and walked into the city. I'd better kill a few more scum for fun. But at this moment, a huge pirate group broke through the clouds just like that, and the shadow it brought directly enveloped Shiliu completely. Shiliu suddenly turned around and looked towards the sky. When he saw the pirate ship floating in the air, he called out in disbelief, "Impossible. The golden lion is dead, but the terrifying ability in front of him is definitely the fluttering fruit. What happened? Could it be the ghost of the golden lion?" With huge doubts, Shiliu squinted his eyes and looked at the pirate ship floating in the sky, only to see several figures standing on the bow of the ship. Shiliu of the Rain. With his hands behind his back, Ace looked condescendingly at Shiliu on the pier, with the corners of his mouth raised, and suddenly said to Ian beside him, "Ian, go try this guy." Yes. After possessing the fluttering fruit, Ian looked more confident, and immediately pulled out the double knives at his waist in response. "It doesn't matter whether you are a human or a ghost. If you don't come down, I will take action." Shiliu of the Rain also pulled out the second-generation Onitsu. With a cold light in his eyes, Onitsu pointed directly at the sky. But there was no movement on the pirate ship, only a young boy's low voice responded to him. "Lion Thousand Cut Valley." In the next second, several streaks of golden sword energy descended from the sky, slashing towards Shiliu in an instant. Of course, Shiliu of the Rain also watched the live broadcast of Marie Joya's battle. He was absolutely impressed by this unique move of the golden lion. Even the handsome masters of the world government could only face the terrifying destructive power seriously. Shilu's complexion suddenly changed, and he didn't dare to be careless at all. He tried his best to flirt, and Goosh rushed towards the golden sword energy at top speed. Ping. With a crisp sound, Shilu's arm trembled slightly, and his body swayed, but the power of the sword energy was unexpectedly within Shilu's tolerance. The sword energy splashed everywhere, leaving dense sword marks on the ground around Shiliu. He squinted his eyes and looked up at the sky, only to see a young man holding two knives, floating in the sky out of thin air. And looking at his relaxed appearance, he didn't rely on moonstep or other physical skills at all, but it was obviously the same fluttering fruit ability as the golden lion. "Who are you? What is your relationship with the golden lion?" Shilu's eyes narrowed slightly, and he stared at the young man in the sky vigilantly. Although the opponent's sword energy was not very powerful, but the move that was like a retreat with the golden lion made Shiliu understand that once this young man grows up, he will definitely grow up again. He is as terrifying and strong as the golden lion. And many more. Shilu's eyes suddenly widened, and he suddenly remembered where this young man seemed to have seen. War Live, Marie Joya. Two nouns appeared in Shilu's mind, and this kid had clearly appeared in the picture before. So, could the figure on that pirate ship be Emperor Yan pirates? Passing over Ian floating in the sky, the figures of Ace and others on the bow came into Shilu's eyes. His pupils shrank suddenly, and his face changed drastically. He didn't even have the slightest thought of fighting, turned around and rushed towards the door without hesitation, and yelled at the sailors guarding the door with a ferocious expression. "Quickly open the door for me." Ace at the bow was startled when he saw this scene. He didn't expect Shiliu of the Rain, one of the highest fighting powers in the advancing city, to escape so decisively. HMPH. How could you not run? At this moment, Shiliu was complaining crazily in his heart. The Yandi pirates, the strongest lineup of the Yandi pirates who caused Mary Joya to make a mess, are all standing on the bow of the ship at this moment. But after Ace was stunned for a moment, a smile appeared on his face again. In front of us, no one can escape now. Willie, Eneru. As soon as Ace gave the order, blue electric light and golden flashes lit up on the bow of the ship at the same time. The next second, two beams of light flashed across the sky in an instant, and suddenly appeared in front of Shiryu. Boom. The dazzling light exploded in front of the gate, and a huge force hit the ghost that Shiryu barely raised. Wow wow wow. Shiryu's feet plowed a deep ditch on the ground, but compared to the physical damage, what shocked him more was the ability displayed by that golden beam of light. Glitter fruit. This is impossible. This is the ability of General Huang Yuan. How could it appear here? Wow. Huang Sha, incarnated by Crocodile and Ace's Pillar of Fire, also fell behind Shiryu at this moment, and at this moment, 4 natural-type fruit ability users surrounded him. Impossible. Ace grinned, flames leaping from his body. On the battlefield of Marie Joya, the fruit ability obtained by Falling Heart Flame is not just the fluttering fruit. Everyone in the Ace Pirates captured Shiryu of the Rain, captured the second generation of ghosts, took him into the City of Advancement, defeated Magellan, rescued Garp on the 6th floor, and found a cloud of magic fog, which eroded Shiryu of the Rain, who was full of malice in his heart, made him reach the general level. Ace absorbed Goosh, and he really reached the general level. He killed Shiryu of the Rain, and found out from the magic fog that the Tianlong people are the demons from beyond the sky. After Garp, Magellan learned of the true identity of the celestial dragons and the truth that the world government has been controlled by the demons from beyond the sky, he and Ace and others secretly went to the Red Earth continent to verify. The Ace Pirates then went to the New World again, to the battlefield between the Whitebeard Pirates and the 100 Beasts Pirates, during which Ace obtained the 3rd-ranked Pure Lotus Demon Fire. When he arrived at the battlefield, because of the butterfly effect of Ace and others, Sage obtained the Dark Fruit in advance. Blackbeard attacked Sage in a sneak attack. When Sage was seriously injured, Ace and others rescued him. After a great battle, Blackbeard didn't want to be entangled and wanted to escape, but Whitebeard arrived at this moment. Although Whitebeard was not at his peak at this time, he was still not suffering from all kinds of diseases a few years later. In anger, he grabbed Blackbeard, blasted back. The only rule of the Whitebeard Pirates is that they can't kill each other. Blackbeard's behavior touched the bottom line, and Whitebeard hammered him half to death, expelling the Whitebeard Pirates. Blackbeard was full of resentment in his heart, and vowed to come back to take back the Dark Fruit, but just as he was about to escape, Ace appeared, and in his unbelievable eyes, he did not hesitate to take the fruit of this previous life. The blood feud was directly burned to ashes. Ace just wants to give Blackbeard the hope of survival first, and then wipe him out with his own hands, so that his only hatred can be eliminated. So far, the murderer who caused the deaths of Whitebeard and Ace in the previous life was finally killed by Ace himself. After solving Blackbeard, the Ace Pirates and the Whitebeard Pirates teamed up to fight the Kaido Pirates. Whitebeard and Kaido confronted each other, and Ace first killed the Mammoth Jack, who underestimated the enemy, and then alone fighting King and Queen. The original strength of the Whitebeard Pirates could not crush the Beast Pirates, but after the crew of the Ace Pirates joined, the situation turned to the Whitebeard Pirates in an instant. The coalition forces of the two pirate groups first wiped out the Little Ones, and then several top-ranked white-bearded pirate team leaders and Ace teamed up to take down King and Queen, and took another battle from King's hands. Take the supreme sharp knife. Just when Ace and the others were going to deal with Kaido with Whitebeard, Charlotte Lingling, the 4th king of the Big Mom Pirates, came with 4 generals, and instead posed a threat to Whitebeard. The former members of the Rocks Pirates fought in a group, and the aftermath of the battle made Captain Whitebeard and Ace's crew completely unable to intervene. Seeing that Whitebeard was at a disadvantage, Ace gritted his teeth and directly absorbed the supreme sharp knife he had just obtained. His strength was one step closer, and he used the Buddha's Wrathfire Lotus composed of 5 types of different fires, and was knocked away by Whitebeard the moment he endured the severe pain. He threw it at Big Mom and Kaido. The power of the huge fire lotus instantly blew up the battlefield island into a sea of flames. The surrounding sea was directly evaporated for several meters, and the 2 emperors were also seriously injured. Whitebeard was rubbed by Holian and was slightly injured, but his rich combat experience made him endure the shock, and took down the 2 emperors, and asked Marco to quickly take Ace, who was also seriously injured, for treatment. A few months later, Ace recovered from his injuries and finally reached the handsome level. he took the rubbings of the red history text of Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom to the East China Sea to find the red-haired Shanks, and got the content of the last red history text. After synthesizing all the contents of the historical text, he learned that the One Piece turned out to be the heart of the world of One Piece, and if he got it, he would be the master of the world. This is indeed the world's #1 secret treasure. The Tianlong people have always wanted to get the heart of the world, so as to truly control the world. They did almost get the heart of the world during the 100 years of disappearance, but for so many years, there was the Rocks Pirates before, and the Pirate King Roger later. Groups of natives in their eyes resisted them in their own way, making this group of extraterrestrial demons unable to succeed. Ace also finally knew why Zhang Zhongqi brought the strange fire to this world. It was precisely because these Tianlong people were also the demons from the universe. At this time, Magellan, who was seriously injured, came and told Ace Tianlong that they had learned the location of the end of the Great Route, and Garp was following them. Ace's heart tightened, knowing that time waits for no one, and after arranging for Magellan, he immediately embarked on a journey to Ralph Drew. When Ace arrived, he found that the more than 20 celestial dragons stood by Ralph Drew were all of the strength above the general level, and they were full of demonic energy. Some kind of ceremony is going on. At this time Garp appeared, and told Ace with a serious face, "It turns out that the reason why the Tianlong people have been lawless and oppressing the people for hundreds of years, making people in this world miserable, is to collect the grievances of the aborigines in this world, break through the enchantment of this world, let their devil emperor enter, thereby absorbing the heart of the world and devouring the entire world. And their devil emperor has the strength far surpassing all the people in this world. Once these Tianlong people are allowed to break through the barrier, this world will definitely be destroyed. But among these Tianlong people, there are a total of 5 handsome people, and the rest are general-level powerhouses. The Ace Pirates alone cannot break through them. Even with Garp, there are only 2 handsome people." Just when Ace was about to grit his teeth, white beards, red hair, and the Big Mom Kaido who had been captured before all came. In the face of external aggression, the powerful people in this world finally united. The 6 master-level powerhouses came together, and finally beat these Tianlong people so hard that they couldn't lift their heads, but just when everyone in Ace thought they were victorious, they didn't expect these ferocious-looking demons from outside the sky to directly choose to blow themselves up, killing them all. All the resentment absorbed by Nien was poured into the black air. The black air rushed straight into the sky, and a huge black vortex appeared in the sky in an instant. The sun was shining in the sky one moment, and the whole world was darkened in the next second. At the same time, a towering giant tree emerges from the center of Ralph Drew. The top of the tree is the heart of the world of One Piece. It struggles to resist the vortex of the sky, but it seems a little powerless. In the eyes of everyone in Ace, a huge head protruded from the dark vortex. It was the demon emperor of the Beyonder demon. The terrifying coercion made Kaido and Big Mom, who had not recovered from their injuries, almost unable to lift their heads. Only Ace was able to grit his teeth and rush forward under the blessing of the strange fire, but he was no match at all, and could only watch helplessly as the Devil Emperor's big mouth kept approaching the heart of the world. At the critical moment, the main body of Zhang Zhongru appeared, and several handsome powerhouses on the scene helped Ace to hit the Emperor level at the same time. The heart of the world seemed to see a glimmer of hope, helping Ace to combine 22 different fires into one. In the end, Ace, who was bathed in the Emperor's flame, was promoted to the Emperor level, grabbed the heart of the world before the Devil Emperor, merged instantly, and even dragged the Devil Emperor into this world. "Don't you want to come in? Then don't go." Burning the Devil Emperor easily, Ace became the Lord of the world and was called Emperor Yan.